What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 302. It is a fine Sunday happening right now as I'm speaking. And this is your host, Ainsley Bowden, with the regular cast of characters back with us, including the soon-to-be married. He's throwing his life away in honor of Bitcast, Mr. Tie Guy Travis himself.
What? McClunky, everyone. Hello. This is your last chance. If anybody wants to, I'm still on the market as of now. Got a couple days.
Get your bids in, folks.
Oh, what are you doing? You've been,
the super chats are flooding it. And wait, no, there's no super chat.
Immediately.
We have people standing by to take your call. Yes.
Great. I'm excited.
There's actually no phone line, but it doesn't matter. It's fine.
I'm excited to see Ames there. I'm excited for Hogue to come out last minute, come visit us. It's going to be good. Good time.
I understand why you've changed your mind on me visiting, but I can't make that happen in 2 days. Sorry.
I know. You never were going to make it happen. You got a lot going on. I get it. It's fine. I forgive you.
It's all good. Of course, the man of law himself, the lawman. We need a better name for you, my friend. Mr. Hogue Law.
We do, but I've never been called the lawman before last week. So, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here talking about video games. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun Bitcast today, everybody.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It's going to be fun. We've got nothing but positive, happy stories to talk about today. Nothing but positivity.
This is true. Except for our main topic. But other than that, the rest will be fun. So today we're going to be talking about specifically, obviously, what we've been playing, some of the later games coming out. We're going to touch on Gamescom coming up, big presence for Xbox there, and the dates and times and things you can expect at Gamescom. We had the THQ Showcase this week with some cool announcements and upcoming games as well. And then our main topic, as Hogue was joking about, is more about the Bungie layoffs, what's happening over at Bungie, PlayStation, and some kind of insight, because I know, Travis, you've talked to people about this, had a long conversation the other night about it. We can provide some insight there, but just some conversations around, how this impacts everything Bungie's doing in PlayStation in the future as well. So, before we get to that, as always, we got a couple things to touch on. So we've got a couple super chats to get to, and we've got Tide's picks, of course. So let's start with the super chats. And you are on deck. Remember, Travis, this is your job now, my friend.
Dorky Dane delivers 89 DKKs, which is a
Donkey Kong coins.
Yeah, it's a currency in a Japanese.
It's Danish krona, isn't it?
I was going to say, let's assume that Dane is literal and it's Danish krona.
Yeah,
that makes sense. And also, their image is a horrifying face. I love it. I look forward to another good show. Congratulations on the upcoming wedding, Travis. Also, please support Stop Destroying Video Games initiative if you are an EU citizen. Just Google it. Face with a winking tongue.
A winking tongue? How do you make your tongue wink? Interesting.
Dude, just ask Dorky Dane. He'll tell you. Give you the tutorial.
So he reached out to me. He or she reached out to me prior to the show too, and asked if we could make a comment about this. I actually haven't had time to Google it because I was preparing for the show, so I'm not sure exactly what this is about. But if you're over in the EU, of course, check it out.
This is a petition similar to kind of right to repair petitions or proposals for laws here in America. That is trying to get publishers to be mandated by EU law to essentially allow folks to access their games, whether or not they have an online component or not to be able to just shut down their servers. This is related to a debate is probably too strong of a word, but a discussion that I had with another YouTuber called Accursed Farms maybe 3 years ago. And if you know me, if you know my channel, if you know my approach to these things, I do worry about regulatory powers mandating certain things of market actors like video game publishers, because I don't think we can fully understand the second and third order functions of whether or not that'll increase costs to the point where they don't want to make games in your particular jurisdictions, or whether they change the structure of what they're making. And I've had this conversation, like I said, with Accursed Farms, but I do understand the impulse to want these things to be better supported I recommend to everybody that they go and they make sure that they buy the games that have the support that they want, and that they talk about the fact that games that don't give that support or publishers that don't offer that support are not going to get their money, more than going through the EU regulatory process. But that's just me, and I don't mind anybody going a different direction with that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good context. Thank you for that, Hope.
Yeah, I assume this is related to game preservation, right? The idea that once servers go offline, you can no longer play content. My problem with that is it doesn't actually solve the problem, right? Like, you can be playing a Destiny, for example, and the servers can be fully online, but they can keep removing content until the game is a shell of its former self. And I think that still meets the requirements proposed by this particular solve. So
I mean, you have to look at the petition itself, but yes, it's basically that you shall be mandated to keep access up and running, not that you'll keep content flowing or anything.
Yeah,
because all of these are a function of how much can we make the company do, and that's going to increase costs on the back end. And so it's very difficult for me to say this is something that must be done by the force of law with threats of financial penalties or throwing people in cages or what have you, rather than the market talking about these things. But one of the things that the games preservationists will never agree with me on, but which I stand pretty steadfastly on, is that they don't have enough backing in the market of people buying or not buying things based on these premises. So going and pursuing a legal remedy is problematic from the standpoint of you don't have enough people on your side to stop buying the things that are not being preserved to your satisfaction. Make that case, convince enough people to come with you on that, and I'm all for it. But going and asking the EU regulatory bodies to come in and just thwart the publishers or mandate that they do certain things for you is not my preferred mechanism for these things.
Well, I do think it's something that pretty much everybody wants, right? People want to be able to buy a game and then know that they own it as much as you can own it with DRM, and also that it won't be taken away from them without warning, right? Unfortunately, the user agreements we all click yes on say that they can do that, and I think we've just kind of accepted that because there's
it's pretty much every game nowadays.
Yeah, it's pretty much every game. There's games. Really no way to solve that unless some sort of effort. But I do think there needs to be a solve here, and there could be some versions of making game preservation easier, certainly for these companies, right? Like if there were some government-run server farm that they could offload these games to once they no longer want to support them or whatever. But I do think there needs to be some sort of solution, because we all want access to the games that we buy, and we all want those games to be playable for as long as possible. It's just a matter of like, how do you get that to work logistically, and how do you compel, or in this case force, companies to provide that sort of service. But I think we all agree on the ends here, right? We all want
this. I think yes, I think we do. And I don't know what, obviously I don't have the answer to the solution, I think, but there's probably some type of happy medium. Marvin in Hogue Chat, Marvin CZ, calls out something that some developers have done, which is like, it's not necessarily about shutting down the servers if the publisher allows people to play the game by some type of other form, right? Release the code, give people access, just open it up. We've seen that in some cases too, where it's like our servers are going down, but here's all the code, and then they allow the community to basically take over the game, right, and try to stand that up. That doesn't really solve the problem of having the publisher give it to everybody per se, but it's just another avenue by which you could still play a game after it's supported. So there's probably some type of happy medium of various methods of allowing people to access their games. But
the real issue here is games as a service, right? The real issue here is
server connectivity. Yes.
And have that multiplayer online functionality, because that's what people are most concerned about, because so much of the industry has moved in that direction at this point, right? And yes, I would love for them to survive forever, Travis. The question is would I be willing to pay for it, or would I be willing for publishers to take fewer risks in making them in the first place if they would have to be obliged to fund their existence for ever and ever, amen. And I don't know the answer to that question, neither does the EU. And so I always worry about pulling on those particular levers, because I cannot see the future. I don't know what that looks like. And so I think what we are seeing is that not enough people are saying, no, the publisher shuts this down. I'm not interested in spending $60 or $70 at this point. And the folks that really want to see these kinds of initiatives move forward are frustrated at that fact, which I don't blame them for at all.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you mandate that at purchase, Hogue? Like, you know what I mean? You can buy a game that is supported for, let's just say, 5 years. It's not like you're going to know when you buy that game that they're going to shut it down. It can sometimes happen kind of without warning.
You support a history of support for the games, and you don't support those publishers that are known to shut things off, what we might consider early. If it's not a quintuple A massive success, they shut it down. I mean, we've talked in this space about the fact that, look, I don't think Skull and Bones is going to knock it out of the park in any way, but I know that Ubisoft has a tendency to stay with these things longer than other publishers do. And so that's one of the reasons I'm more inclined to spend my money and my time in that environment.
Yeah, I think it's still like it definitely matters for online games, but I think games as a service, what you pointed out is like the main problem, Hogue, is they kind of have a separate problem that this doesn't address at all, which is that like if you can play Fortnite right now because the servers are still up and they probably will be for a long time, but you can't go back and play like the world gets sucked into a black hole part of Fortnite that was only there for a month or whatever. You can't go and play seasonal content in Destiny for seasons past. So I think that there's an entirely separate problem of like, because it's like we're going to be talking a lot about Destiny today, so it's kind of on my mind, but like if you want to go and experience the full story of Destiny, you can't do that. You have to have been there, or that's it. That's really your only option. Otherwise, you're just watching recap videos on YouTube. And I think there is something to be said about that specific process of, I mean, we'll get into it, but the result has been that Destiny's audience has grown increasingly older, which is a weird problem to have and a really bad problem to have if you're a developer / publisher trying to make money and you just see your demographic that's supporting your game aging.
Well, Destiny and Fortnite and a lot of other live service models have essentially monetized what we might call FOMO, right? Like they want you to be there in the moment because they want you to have that kind of connection with the product so that you're in the store every other day, if not every day. And so, the black hole doesn't come back. You don't get to see the map flipping over in the ocean in Fortnite again. And you have to only kind of relive those things as they happen in the past. The current live service game model reminds me the most of like theme parks, right? I went to Walt Disney World a lot when I was a kid, right? And in particular, my favorite theme park was Epcot because I'm a weirdo. But that particular theme park has had virtually every pavilion, every ride either discontinued and closed or changed to something else. And so it doesn't reflect my experiences when I was a kid. And when I take my kids to that park, my wife makes fun of me because I constantly say, you know, that used to be Horizons over there. That was the best. Or that used to be something else over there. And you can't experience that again. Like I can't go back and be in Epcot in 1986. Obviously, that's infrastructure. That's in the real world. That's actual physical things. But I think part of aging and becoming more seasoned, if you will, is understanding that virtually everything is in its own place in time. And it doesn't feel that way when you're a kid. And I think that's something that we all have to grow up and understand. And I think games have that quality to them as well. And I think there have been some really interesting and fun experiences that I've had in Fortnite and other live service games that I wish I could functionally go back to. But even if somebody built in a kind of fake version of season 2 of Fortnite or Diablo 4 or anything else, it would feel artificial. It wouldn't be the same without everybody experiencing it at the same time. You don't have that kind of social media interaction or the Reddit boards talking about what's changing, whatever it is that you might
water
have.
cooler moment to use an old phrase. Sorry.
Yeah, you can't relive watching Lost for the first time with everybody else on planet Earth. Like that didn't happen even when it went out on Netflix. So
I think some of this is we're trying to capture forever a thing that cannot really be captured. Like I view live service games as being like live events, right? Like if you weren't at the concert in 2005, you're never going to go and be able to see that concert again. You can watch it on video later, but it's not the same as being there. And I think that is unfortunate, but I think it's just how it is, and we're never going to be able to solve that problem. The main thing that I think we do have to solve is just like access to the games and how long you get access to them, or how long are you guaranteed access to them if you're going to buy them. That's much harder to do because there's inherent risks in participating in the free market, right? Like if you bought a Zune, you're probably upset that you did that because Zune went out of business, and there's really nothing you can do to deal with that. You just
and Microsoft and Google have reaped the quote unquote rewards of their very aggressive product culling strategies, right? Like everybody talks about Zune, just like you might otherwise talk about Stadia or something else. Like these tech companies are fully willing to make it look like they're 100% behind something and then pull it from you because it didn't work up to their satisfaction. And we know that, right? We know that we have a kind of societal understanding of, okay, you got to take a trepidatious step with a Microsoft brand new technology entry into a field. And I think that was visited on the Xbox actually back in the early 2000s.
It was, yeah.
But that's normal. That's how people react to these things. And I think that's okay. And having somebody mandate some aspect of it with the government is a step past where I'm comfortable being with the way the video game industry operates.
I think there's probably middle ground. I think,
there's got to be.
Yeah, I think the idea that like a piece of art, right, our modern day Mona Lisa could exist and then suddenly not exist, I think is a real problem that at some point some body or group has to address. I don't know the best manner to do that, but I do think it will be a problem because,
no one wants to buy your NFT, Travis.
Why not? But it's only $50,000. It's so affordable right now.
I want to know what Travis's NFT would be. It's just a picture of like a torso with a tie.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to pretend NFTs don't exist because it's up to me.
But yeah, I think there's some middle ground here. That's a good conversation, guys, on a single super chat. So Dorky Dan, you got your money's worth on that one, I think.
Sure you did.
But yeah, it's a good conversation. I don't think there is a kind of golden era solution, right? And I think as we've tackled the biggest difference between now and when we were growing up is that we've talked about this many times, right? You bought a game, you had a hard copy, you had a console, you plugged it in, and you could play it till the end of time, assuming the cartridge itself didn't die or something, And now with everything being basically server-based, or I'd say the majority of games being server-based, right? They're at the mercy of that connectivity. How you solve for that long term, I don't know.
Here's what I would do. Here's a business proposition.
Uh-oh.
We will start a business, B2B SaaS, and we will offer our services to other game developers so that when they're ready to turn off the servers on their game, they can have us in their tech stack, and we'll have a solution that basically takes their game and brings it mostly offline. But then for people who really want to play it, we'll like spin up server space in some like creative way. We'll just have a solution, and then every developer will just include us in their tech stack, right?
I like that your business model is we'll figure it out. Well, and our magic spell will work.
We don't know the technology yet, so it's hard to describe it. But like the idea that if I'm a game developer and I have this thing where I'm looking at spreadsheets for like when is it no longer financially viable to keep my game online, if I had a software solution that I could bring in with the rest of my tech stack that was like, okay, when I'm done with it, send it here and they'll do a thing with it. It's that's a pretty easy thing to get on board.
You're just assuming the solution is my issue with this business model. But the second one I have, as a lawyer for software companies, is that you have to have access to their source code then, and a lot of people are going to have a lot of problems with that.
Guys,
we'll solve for it, Hogue.
Relax. Welcome to San Francisco. Okay, we come up with what we want and then we build from there. Okay.
Well, then I will fulfill my role on this particular podcast as corporate lawyer. That says, hold on, let's walk that back.
We don't get corporate lawyers until we've already built the dream. You're the last thing we're worried about. Okay?
18 months after we launch, when a lawsuit happens, we'll talk to you. Until now, just pipe down.
When we have an MVP and now we're talking logistics, then we'll reach out to you. Okay, you're not the ideas man. Let me handle this.
Don't take the Bitcast for legal advice, and this is not official legal advice from me. but don't wait until you have a freaking product in the market to talk to a lawyer.
This is a non-lawyer giving you absolute legal advice, and that is that you should not listen to lawyers because they will always tell you no, and you should just build the dream and worry about lawyers later. And that's how we do things here in San Francisco.
Dream big.
What titans of the industry.
Actually, you joke, but like there used to be, what was like Xbox Connect when Xbox Live went down for like Halo 2, players got together, created their own peer-to-peer kind of service, So I think on a broad scale, the theory you have,
that's my point.
Sound. Actually, implementation is a whole nother.
Oh yeah. I'm sure the reason this hasn't happened yet is because there's probably some cost to benefit analysis. But my point is, like, if you
some cost to benefit analysis, I can assure you there's a cost to benefit.
Sorry, what I meant to say is there's some cost to benefit analysis that's preventing it from existing. But my point is, if you had some sort of like stock solution where it was like, you are ready to offload your games, we have some creative peer-to-peer or something technology that allows players to access your game after you're done hosting on servers, I think that's like such an easy sell to every developer and publisher out there who doesn't want to think about it and goes, you have a solution, we'll pay a monthly fee for however many games we're hosting on your platform.
I don't think it's that far fetched. I don't.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm actually on board.
I'm kind of being serious here. Like, we can get seed funding.
I think that's a pretty good idea, especially as server capacity gets cheaper and cheaper by the year. So yeah.
But you have to convince the publishers first and foremost that it's going to change the bottom line at all, right? This is what I'm talking about. It starts with the market.
Of course. That is fair. I think we have to wait for this to become a little bit more of a sticking issue with people, which I think it probably will organically. Something really bad's going to happen. But I mean, if you can offer that to your players and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, it doesn't like deeply affect your bottom line, like, it'd be big. You only need one or two publishers to buy into it, and then all of a sudden it becomes social pressure. Like, oh, Ubisoft is doing this, but EA isn't, and then kind of
the worse than social pressure. If you can convince one, then they'll use that as essentially
exactly. Then it's a selling point.
They'll be like, they'll use it as an attack, right?
Yep.
And
that's good. That's good. We solved it. Done.
Guys, I'm going to start a business, and Hogue will be a naysayer, and I'm going to be on the show in 10 years as a
I'll help you with the tech side of it.
How was that, Hogue?
I'm in.
How was your prediction, Mr. Lawyer Man?
I'm not a naysayer. I'm just saying get legal advice when you start an entity.
We haven't launched yet. We'll talk to you later. All right.
When you got an MVP, we'll be in touch.
This is how you wind up in the Social Network movie.
Man.
There's always some risk there, but it's also how you end up a billionaire. So
okay. All right. Dorky Dane, thank you for the comment. I did not expect to spend 20 minutes on that, but here we are. Appreciate it. Googleman is here.
All right, Googleman81 for 10 euros says, so Jensen Huang and Mark Zuckerberg apparently enjoy hanging out and making Philly cheesesteaks, but Mark cuts tomatoes weird and robot-like.
Googleman, I've been promised that Mark Zuckerberg is cool now on my social media timeline. He got a new haircut and he's cool now. This is what I've been told.
He didn't just get a new haircut. He's shredded.
Okay.
He's like practicing like mixed martial arts or something.
He when you got money and nothing but free time.
I was going to say, he's a billionaire. We're like, go have fun.
Yeah, he's my neighbor. His house is super cool.
He's my neighbor.
He is. Actually. He's like a little bit that way.
Yeah, so my problem with this comment is not Googleman at all. It's really around Philly cheesesteaks. Anyone from the tri-state area will have a big problem with people calling things Philly cheesesteaks that aren't Philly cheesesteaks, and I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg to make a Philly cheesesteak. So,
Why not?
Come on.
We do all right with Philly cheesesteaks.
No, you don't.
Yeah, we do.
No, you don't.
I mean,
they do something well with a product that they call a Philly cheesesteak that they enjoy.
That's probably true. Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of bad ones, but there's also a lot of bad Philly cheesesteaks in Philly. Just because they're in Philly does not mean they're good.
That's also true. That's 100% true.
A lot of bad Philly cheesesteaks everywhere. That's one of the risky orders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it is.
Honestly, Philly cheesesteak is probably like always a gamble for me, unless it's a place I really know and trust.
That's what I mean.
You can't just go to a random place and get a Philly because that's like a coin toss of whether it being a really good experience or just terrible.
Disgusting. Yeah, I mean, it can
go
really badly.
It can go really bad if that meat is dry and they don't get the cheese ratio right. God, dude. God.
Googleman, thank you as always. Britt Cormier with a $50 super chat on the Hogue side of the house.
Oh, thanks, Britt.
Britt Cormier.
I should have saved this one. Actually, I should have saved this for our bigger conversation. Let's come back to this one because I've got two on Bungie. I've got two on Bungie specifically. Let's come back.
Thanks, Brett. You're getting put on hold.
Yeah,
I'm being given contradictory instructions here, and it feels like a hostile work environment.
Britt, we will get to your comment. I promise shortly. We're gonna have a big conversation on
Bungie.
Bungie.
Brett Cormier.
The Travis bot smoke is coming out of his ears.
Yeah, and Chris as well. We're gonna get to your comments. Bear with us. Shoosh,
you have €5 to offer us, and this to say, I won't be at the wedding because I can't afford Travis's NFTs he will probably be selling to pay for the venue. I'll have you know, my financial situation is just fine. Thank you very much. We are having a very fancy wedding at exorbitant costs to yours truly, but it will surely be worth the effort. Well, we'll see. Ames, you know what I would like, Ames? I would really like this.
Go ahead.
If you could post a review on Seasoned Gaming of my wedding, that would be fantastic.
Done. I'll do it.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll do it.
That'd be cool.
Let me get it in my head to make sure I'm kind of taking mental notes during the wedding. Yeah.
I think that'd be good. I think it'd be good.
Okay. I'll do that. That'll be fun, actually. I will do that.
I want a full review of the vows.
I will even do the full summary card and everything with a picture.
Dude.
Okay,
that's gonna be sick. I wonder what my Metacritic score will be.
The best part is on OpenCritic, if you're the first person to do a game, the outlet to first do a game, you have to create the entry for the game. It's got all these requirement fields.
Crazy.
I should see if I could actually get that to show up. We'd probably get banned off OpenCritic afterwards, but it may be worth it.
The only console he's on is MetaQuest 3.
Look, you only get banned if nobody else reviews it. All right,
this is true. We're the only review.
There's a whole bunch of IGN people there, so there's ample. I'm inviting other outlets. There's going to be a lot of industry people there. So
all right, if we can throw IGN's weight behind it, I'll feel better.
Yeah.
All right, Shoosh, thank you.
They assign it to me. They go, Travis, actually, we don't have bandwidth for this. Could you handle the review of your wedding? And I'm like,
hang on. The lawyer in me has a couple of responses to what Travis said about this particular super chat.
Okay.
One of which is that the fact that you might or might not be selling NFTs is not actually reflective of whether or not you are doing just fine financially. And so, as we know, Travis, a greedy San Franciscan in the tech field, may or may not sell NFTs regardless of what his Scrooge McDuck money bin looks like. So I don't view that as responsive to the comment in question.
I will refute you by saying it is responsive to the question because he assumes my motive is to pay for the venue. And if I already got the money, I do not need it to pay for the venue. I may be selling NFTs out of pure greed, but I am not doing it to pay for the venue.
Okay,
so,
as long as we got that clarified, I appreciate the clarification, Travis. The second thing I wanted to note is that you said it was going to be at great personal cost to you, and then when you said it would be worth it, you said it would be worth the effort, not the cost. You switched the nouns there in an interesting way.
Well, I view money as effort. It really is the ultimate form of effort. I did effort, and then I had to spend that effort money, the effort bucks, if you will, on said event. So,
I tell my wife when she buys something that I spent my life force on that. So
yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah, I'm being drained of my livelihood. So it is effort in a way. Yeah.
All right, Shoosh, thank you very much. We've got Bruno.
Karam Muller offers $20 $. IDK.
What is $?
You don't know about $? I'll tell you after the show. I'll tell you
seriously, I don't think I've just seen $$ before because it's not rupees.
Rubles?
No, it's going to be a denominated dollar in.
From Brazil. He said cheers from Brazil.
Gotcha.
So there you go.
Cool. So yeah, the Brazil bucks, 20 of them. IDK the solution to this specifically for games as a service, but it's real, by the way. What's that? Real?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a cool name for a currency. Someone write that down. IDK the solution to this specifically for games as a service, but it is a joke to boot up Gran Turismo Sport, a mostly single player game, and have no cars in the garage because poor Sony shot the server down. Cheers from Brazil.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a very true.
That is something that you should keep in mind when next Sony wishes to sell you a games as a service type game. And I know Gran Turismo Sport is, as you describe it, a mostly single player game, but it has a significant number of online components, and we should remember those kinds of things when they look to sell us products.
Yeah, because basically what they did, they kind of forcefully moved people from Sport to 7, right? That was the goal. Most of the content that was in Sports in 7 with a lot more content, because 7's like the full entry, if you will. But Sport, they built a...
Sport always seemed like a weird transition.
Well, it started very narrow in scope, right? And then because 7 took so long, basically they continued to expand Sport, and Sport eventually became a pretty fully featured Gran Turismo title. But to his point, now if you want to go play, you basically just have to go with 7 because Sport is basically shut down. So yeah, it's a fair point. Bruno, thank you, man. Cheers from Brazil as well. Appreciate the super chat. Actually, Bert is my buddy who I started season game with. He's flying to Sao Paulo today. Nice. Funny enough. So
we don't talk about Bruno.
What?
Is there anything else that survived that movie except for that line? Because
I never even saw that movie.
I don't even know what you're referring to.
That's in Kanto.
There's
a Disney movie, apparently, that I think Lin-Manuel Miranda made the music for, which is the only reason I know it exists.
Oh, okay.
He did, in fact, make the music for Encanto. He's not making the music for Moana 2, which my daughter reminds me of every time that Moana 2 is mentioned.
And is she upset about that?
She is upset.
She's a big Lin head.
Why even bother?
Big Lin head, Madam Lady Hogue.
She, my daughter can spout off huge chunks of Hamilton if you give her the right one-word phrase.
Wow.
Does she include... Never mind.
All right.
Go on.
Moving on. Bruno, thank you very much. Member comment from Gamefire.
Gamefire member for 14 months. Guest ideas, Jez and Rand Al Thor and Spawn Wave and Mystic to bring on the podcast.
That's a lot of guests.
Great sentence. I love that.
Yeah.
Jez has been on. Rand has been on. Spawn Wave and Mystic have not. But yes, I do talk, obviously, to Jez. I talk to Rand once in a while. So yeah, we'll have more guests in the future, especially with Dan obviously being away from the show, at least for a while. We'll see how that shakes out, but the idea is to definitely have people join us, and we may have a guest next week as well. So more to come. Gamefire. All right, we've got the 2 other comments. Like I said, we'll save for our Bungie conversation coming up shortly. And then let me just touch on Tide's picks. Tide went with Halo this week. I'm not quite sure why, but of course I appreciate it. And I want to call specific attention before I even put it on the screen to Travis's helmet.
Nice.
Now that's a tease.
What the Why? I hate it.
It looks like you got a normal helmet. It just couldn't hold your head.
Dude, Hogue, what is AI doing? Why are you always such a handsome boy in these? I don't understand. You just, they chisel you. It's crazy. I don't understand it. Jesus. All right. Well, this is messed up. AI hates me and loves Hogue, but I don't know what's going on. I mean, honestly, I look the most Spartanish to be honest with you.
Ames, you do with your visor.
Ames, you look like an ODST. I don't even know.
I do. I'm definitely dying in the first chapter or 2. Yeah. I also like how it took the 117 on the armor and just turned it into whatever those symbols are in each of the pictures.
I'm the only one with an actual number on me. You guys are just.
I've got.
Mine looks like it says GG. I'm just out there like, good game, guys.
Yours does say GG. And the Hogue just has some fake symbol.
I have the infinity symbol on, so I'm representing Halo Infinite here. What I'm most impressed about, honestly, from Against the Tide here is that they got seasoned gaming to come out of AI. Like they got
the actual words. Phrase. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although the M has 4 lines, I just noticed.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was like, it kind of says he's gaming season is what I'm feeling.
Oh
yeah,
god,
my helmet is hilarious. I'll be honest though, AI got my top of my head like spot on. Like that is what the top of my head looks like.
We need to take one of those plastic cheap helmets and cut it so that you can wear it like that, like a visor.
Yeah, totally.
Doesn't Travis have one on his back shelf? Yeah, just cut that open, bud.
Yeah, I look like I'm
That's
about to
the
play
Halo
poker
3 CE. You can't.
I look like I'm about to play. I'm about to deal some poker cards in the Halo universe, like with that Halo visor face.
WW with the super chat about the picture says
Debbie Dubs offers $10 to say Travis looks like Kai Lang. So true.
A little bit.
A little bit.
That's awesome. Debbie, thank you as always. Appreciate you. All right, boys. Let's talk about some games, what we've been playing. I'm going to kick us off this week because I want to talk about a game I don't think we've really talked about on the show, and I did not expect to be talking about. I don't know how much interest there is in it, but I'll talk about it anyway, which is X-Defiant. So X-Defiant, if you're unfamiliar, is basically Ubisoft's, for lack of a better phrase, Call of Duty competitor. It's an arena shooter that is actually has characters and abilities. So kind of map size, gunplay, customization, pretty similar to Call of Duty. Game modes also pretty similar, but a few kind of nuanced differences. But your characters actually have abilities, right? So it's 6-on-6. There's a little more teamwork, I would say, than in Call of Duty, from my experience. And the kill time is not quite as fast. So in Call of Duty, you'll turn a corner and it's like, blep, dead. It's like instant, basically. Whereas this, it takes a little more, slightly slower TTK. But I downloaded this. I had one of the Halo guys said he was playing it, so I checked it out this week. And at first I played in the alpha and I wasn't really impressed by it. And it's still pretty light on content. They've got some things to work on. But generally speaking, I've actually been enjoying it quite a bit. I played that and Call of Duty yesterday briefly, just trying to get a quick fix. And MW3 or Call of Duty just doesn't do a lot for me. I'm just not a Call of Duty guy. I never really have been, but I try to play it and I just get bored of it very, very quickly. Whereas for whatever reason, I find myself enjoying X-Defiant for what it is. I think because it's more team-based and has a little more strategy to it, I would say. So if you haven't checked it out, it is free to play. They had season 1 launch. They added ranked play. There's factions and stuff in there. You can check it all out. A lot of it you can unlock for free, which is cool. So you can unlock additional characters and weapons and all that normal jazz just by playing the game. And I've been enjoying it. It's been an interesting change coming from stuff like Halo and other things like that, which are very, very coordinated team-based, right? So it's something you can just kind of pick up and play quickly. You don't need a ton of it's easy to pick up and play. I kind of like Call of Duty, but a little more strategic. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've not played that one.
Yeah, I was in the alpha like late last year, and I played like a few matches, and I was like, yeah, this is no good. But it's really come a long way. I think, if I remember correctly, and someone can keep me honest, but one of the former like Call of Duty leads, is it Jason Rubin maybe? One of like the high, people who really made Call of Duty what it was is working with Ubisoft on it. So it's clear that it has some good inspiration. They spent time to polish it up and change it up, and there's something there. And the other neat thing about it I'll mention is that Ubisoft does a good job of this usually in general, is they take advantage of their other IPs. So there's like maps that cross over with Far Cry, with Division. So it's like this, this is this area from Division, and you'll see like, things from Division kind of in the background and, certain stuff. So it's kind of neat in that regard. Yeah.
I hate the name.
X-Defiant is weird. Yeah. I don't know why they went with something.
Compliant, right? X-Defiant, formerly Defiant.
It's not EX. It's just the letter X, right?
Yeah. Well, which doesn't really help its case much, but But anyway, if you like those kind of quick competitive shooters, check it out. It's something different and has its own kind of slightly unique flavor to it. So
I'm throwing my hat in with Concord for the 5 minutes it's up, but I appreciate the note. I did see Valorant. I was considering trying.
Valorant is now fully out. Yes. Out of beta on PlayStation and Xbox. Yes.
Sweet. I want to play that.
I'm in on Concord too. I actually had a good time playing Concord.
I really like that beta. So I'll play it while it's still supported, and we'll enjoy it.
Yeah,
that's my review of Hogue as well. I really like that beta.
That took a second for but anyway, talk to me about some games you've been playing, guys, and shout out to 250 plus concurrent hanging out with us. Appreciate you all, especially if you didn't notice, we don't go live on Twitter anymore. They took down that integration. Very nice of shout out to Twitter, so you can't even do that unless you pay now. So
love it.
Yeah,
Twitter's not my favorite place on earth. I will say that.
No.
Okay.
Anyway,
so I have a number of things
Defiant
to talk about from a Hogue's Notes perspective.
Hogue's Notes. Now it's time for Hogue's Notes.
All right. So one game that came out a little while back that we haven't talked about at all, that I wanted to kind of talk about from a perspective that I'm mixed on this particular game, but I didn't know whether you all had played it, is a game called Nobody Wants to Die.
Yeah.
I did see a lot of people posting about it. I have not played it.
And this is a future noir type game in which you're something like Deckard from Blade Runner and going through a city-based mystery where you can reconstruct scenes in the past based on your detectiving, your knowledge of what happened.
Psychometry.
In a fairly weird way. It's not time travel. It's not virtual reality. It's kind of a little bit of both. But on top of that, it's got like the saxophones and horns and everything that you expect from like a 1940s noir. And ultimately, the story is about noir type things, the corruption at the core of the city and society's failures, and all these various things. And I like the production value. I like all of those kind of noir influences. I don't like it as a game. For me, a mystery game really has to be something that you feel like you're involved with personally and figuring things out. And this game is so linear in the way that it presents clues and understanding that it doesn't let you into that mystery yourself, in my opinion. And so I've been interested to see social media. A lot of folks say they really like it. To me, it feels like a kind of hollow version of really good noir stories that we can recognize in the past. But it has very high production values, which I have noted that a lot of people like potentially even more than stories and plot and character. And so I was wondering whether you guys had played this. I spent a fair number of hours in it, and it ultimately left me a little bit wanting, but I understand why people are reacting positively to it.
Yeah, so I have not played it yet. I downloaded it, and it's on my list once I have time. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, you said it's very linear. Does the storytelling make up for that fact or not really? Or you're not sure yet?
Okay, so there's a couple aspects that I really like. One is that there's a person in a chair in your ear that was put on your case and doesn't want to be. So you have a lot of really good interactions with this lady that is yelling at you for doing the various detective things that you're doing. And I think they really captured that kind of character personality conflict well in a way that I don't see a lot of in video games. But the overall plot, which ostensibly is about a future in which it's been discovered that there's a chemical in human bodies that allow them to transfer their essence, their souls, to another body, and how that kind of manifests in a political landscape. What do the laws look like? What do you have to do for your own body if somebody else could use it later? You have mandates for fitness and things like that, and how that interacts. And in a noir context, they have a lot of discussion points about city councilors and ordinances and laws and what government and politics looks like in a world where that's true. And I love that kind of world building. I love that kind of thought experiment. But ultimately, it comes down to very kind of traditional noir storytelling about corruption and politics and things in a way that I was not terribly satisfied with. But if it's your first rodeo with that kind of concept, it might be better than it is for me.
Okay.
I really want to play this one. Looks cool. Love sci-fi. Love weird stuff. Love noir. I'm okay with it being a little edgelordian because if you really lean into noir, it kind of feels like tongue-in-cheek to me. It doesn't feel as like cringy. So
it is a little tongue-in-cheek, right? I mean, when I say it goes into noir, it's got the blinds, it's got the shadows, it's got the the first person in mind narration from the grizzled detective.
Yeah, hell yeah. No, I'm into that because for me that is less like of a problem. Normally I'm with you, Hogue, like it can be a little cringy, but I think if you go noir, it kind of becomes more acceptable. It's just kind of, I don't know, a little charming in like a goofy way. So
I don't find it cringy, and I don't think the game is cringy. I think it's maybe a little clunky in the storytelling because the characters come in with certain feelings about their situation in the city and various laws, and you feel like you're catching up most of the time because the exposition nobody likes, right? Exposition is boring. Everybody hates the speeches, and when somebody just says, "Oh yes, by the way, this law does this," but you still have to figure out a way to convey that information to the player or the reader or the movie watcher. I don't think they do a great job with that. This is from a company called Play On, which I believe is the rename for something that
the publisher, PLAION.
Yes.
Okay, that's the publisher. Yeah.
Was that Focus? Is that who that used to be?
No, Focus Interactive is still around. Play On. Why am I blanking on this?
I was blanking on it too.
They're not the developer.
I'll look it up. Right? Keep talking. I got it.
The publisher.
Yeah, they might just be the publisher. I honestly, it's just one of those things where it's like it's a higher level of production value than I was expecting from a kind of $25 game.
Hit Games. So PlayOn is just the publisher. Critical.
Yeah, PlayOn's the publisher.
All they've made. So this is their first game. It looks like.
No.
A Critical Hit
on Steam anyway.
Oh, the developer, you mean?
The developer.
I apologize. Yeah. Yes.
Critical Hit Games. It says that this is their first game. So, I mean, that's cool. I like that they're doing something new. It kind of looked a little Telltale-ish to me, like in its format of like, you're kind of going to different locations and learning a little bit of story. Is it like that, or are you walking around this joint?
No, you're walking around, and it's all in first person, so that I guess doesn't make me think of Telltale, but
got you. Play On is part of Embracer, and as someone Denise says in our chat, says it's former Coke Media, but they are subsidiaries of Play On. So is Deep Silver, who made Dead Island 2.
Maybe Deep Silver changed its name. Okay,
yeah, and Warhorse, who obviously's got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 coming later this year. So, but cool, man. Yeah, I saw people posted about it. Yeah, I'm excited too. What was I going to say? I saw people post about this. I wasn't exactly sure what it was. I was getting Blade Runner vibes from what I was seeing, but I didn't know. So thanks for the context on that one. Someone in your chat, Hogue, said sounds like an Altered Carbon. I don't know if you guys watched that on Netflix.
Yep.
I watched the first season, I think.
That's all you need to watch.
Right? A lot of potential, but man, that show was bad.
It was all over the place.
The acting was so bad from Anyway, but I love the universe. I love that idea. I thought that was really cool. I have the tabletop RPG, which, better way to experience that universe.
Cool. Yeah, season 2 was oof. Yeah, don't worry about that one.
They changed the main actor every season, right? Because he gets.
Yeah, it was only those 2 seasons because season 2 just wasn't. Yeah, it was. I don't even think I finished it, but yeah. Too bad. Anyway,
that was one I wanted to mention because I had spent some time in it and I hadn't mentioned it in prior weeks. But I like to use this section to tell people things that I really enjoy that they might not have heard of.
Yeah,
and that's not one that I can recommend like wholeheartedly to folks because I think it is a kind of clunky, not so satisfying narrative mystery adventure when there are better mystery adventures out there. But it does have high production values. You're not going to play in the same universe in a different game. So if that sounds interesting to you, you might want to give it a try. It's not an expensive game. The other one that I wanted to mention that I'm also of mixed feelings on is a strange little game called Thank Goodness You're Here. Okay. Which is essentially, they call it a slap former because your only interactions are jumping and slapping people.
I saw this one.
But you're a cartoon like marketing executive in a cartoon version of some small British town that I think is fake. Not that I know all of British towns.
This was in the Wholesome Direct, wasn't it?
It might have been in the Wholesome Direct. You're like a little lemon man. You're very yellow. Yeah. The art style reminds me of like the children's books that used to teach you manners. I don't know if you remember those.
I didn't have those. I don't know if you've seen my manners, but
I was going to say it's possible that you did not have any books teaching you manners, Travis. That's fine.
I was basically raised by wolves, so.
But this game is like someone said, what if WarioWare mini games could be connected? Like it's all a bunch of comedy bits. And I wanted to mention it to you, Travis, because they are comedy bits. But they're very British in nature. And the other aspect of it that I don't think was really covered in the description of the game is that they're all kind of double entendre. Like you'll go to a gardener and he'll be talking about how great that guy's marrow looks and like just these jokes like that. But they also have like funny things where you go past a person in the street and she'll be complaining that somebody has put his garbage in her bin, and then you'll solve a puzzle and you'll go back around and then she'll be complaining that he's put his bin in her bin. And then when you go and you pass it the third time, she'll be in the bin and she'll be complaining that he has put her in the bin. And that kind of thing is just like this ludicrous British comedy that I kind of like when the bits pop up, but there's a lot of time spent kind of running around trying to figuring out how to advance. There's no map. There's no quest log. It's none of that. It's just walking around and hitting the one interaction button you have on things and figuring out what forward is. But it's very cartoony. It's very interesting to look at. And one of the things that they like to do is change your size based on the scene transition. So if you go through a door, you might be really, really small and be stepping on somebody's like stomach in the next scene. And you might be transferred into a beer barrel and be slowly getting drunk as you try to pop bubbles to get up out of the barrel. And it's ridiculous. I don't know whether I enjoyed it or not. But there's a lot of time spent where I'm just running around not understanding what's going on. So it sounded like a Travis game to me. I wanted to mention it to you. If you haven't heard of it, Travis, it's Thank Goodness You're Here.
Yeah, I remember seeing this at Wholesome Direct and being like, I'll play that. But yeah, I don't have a problem with British comedy if it's good. But yeah, that sounds like one I want to play. I like WarioWare a lot. Those games are cool.
I mean, nice. It's that connection of random bits, like you never know.
Yeah, random stupid, just like throw stuff at the wall. So I can mess around with that. That sounds fun.
That's cool. Very cool.
The thing that you said that scares me is the unintuitive design of like wandering around and no clear like functions to support like where you should go next. That part actually that might be a problem for me.
Well, you have to remember where the things are in the town, and you have to remember that like going down the butter hole takes you to the like the fish factory and
oh
things
my
like that.
God. I never thought I'd hear Hogue say going down the butter hole takes you to the fish factory. Here we are. That's where we are.
Oh, there's our clip for this week.
Man, that is brutal. Whoa.
And Google then says, welcome to my life. I'm not sure if that was timed properly or not, but perfect.
Oh, that was good. That was my wedding gift from Hogue.
So check that one out if any of that sounds interesting to you. I highly recommend looking at the trailer to get a vibe for the game first. But that's one I wanted to mention. I did want to say I made one mistake this week, and that is I bought Earth Defense Force 6.
Nice.
And I've been playing it, and I'm gonna this is my review. Travis, I don't get it.
Nice. Yep, that's fine, man. I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. Yeah, I did finish that review. It took me like 80 plus hours to beat the damn game. But yeah, it is very stupid and silly, but I mean, it's a satire game, right? Like they know what they're doing. They're just making it dorky and weird. I will say that game is significantly less fun if you play it alone. I mean, it's designed really to be a 4-player game. So even if you don't know the people you're playing with, I mean, it's a much better if you do. But even if you don't, if you just create a room and then people start joining your party and doing levels with you, it is very, very silly, over the top fun. But yeah, definitely not a Hogue game. I would not have recommended it to you. I would have been
I said I made a mistake.
But
I gave it a try.
I'm glad that you tried it.
Oh yeah, and I don't think the graphics are awful. I don't think they're even as bad as the screenshots look like. They remind me of like a high-res version of the like Saturn era arcade machines.
Like, okay, yeah.
Just super high textures, kind of polygons smashed against each other in unpleasing ways. But overall, a good look. Like it reminds me of that old Sega.
Was that System 32? I'm going into memory banks here. I'm pretty sure that's right. System 32. Someone Sega can check me on that.
There you go. If you're watching at Sega, you can check us on it. That's what it looks like to me, is that kind of high
I was not expecting the takeaway to be that Hogue thinks EDF6 doesn't look that bad.
It doesn't look that bad.
I think it looks pretty terrible, man. But I don't know. Maybe I've seen it. It's also just like it's a combination of the way it looks and the way that you interact with how it looks. Like when you get really up close to things and the collision of like ants going through each other and just, buildings have as soon as a building gets destroyed, it has no form to it. Like you can walk straight through large pieces of rubble like they don't exist and stuff like that. It's kind of a combination of literally the way the pixels look and then also the way the pixels interact with the player, and it just has a very uneven kind of.
I have a pretty high tolerance for non-physics based video games. That's how it used to be, right? So
yeah,
that doesn't bother me. The what bothers me, and it's not really bother, it's just more like I don't feel anything, is like I don't understand why I would play this next level, and I don't understand.
I don't feel anything.
No, it is. I tried it. I said, you know what? We'll give it a shot. We haven't tried one of these games in a long time. Travis says this is a good jumping on point because they're not trying too hard anymore. Let's give it a shot. And I gave it a shot. I'll probably give it another shot, but I do not think I will be getting my money's worth out of my purchase of EDF6.
He's been spoiled by going down the butterhole.
Where I did get my money's worth, though, as I mentioned this last week, obviously, is that Kunitsugami just gets better and better. I just played more of it this week. It's awesome, folks. Do not skip out on Kunitsugami, even if its name frightens and confuses you.
It's called Path of the Goddess. And yeah, if you didn't listen to us last week, Kunitsugami, Capcom game, it's on Game Pass. It came out a couple weeks ago. A lot of people really enjoying it. Different type of game, but check it out for sure. All right. Nice. Got a couple super chats, Travis. What do you want to call out? Anything?
Is that Hogue's Notes, Hogue?
That is Hogue's Notes. The only other thing I've been playing is not a Hogue's Notes type title. It's Mortal Kombat 1. But I realized when I was looking to play something in this kind of interregnum period between big releases that there were a number of games from last year that I had played that I knew I liked, but I didn't interact with a ton because of my situation last year, and I wanted to give another try to. And Mortal Kombat 1 has been great, and it has a new DLC coming out in a couple months, I think. So I really have been enjoying that a lot.
Hogue's Notes. That's the end of Hogue's Notes. All right, we've now closed up that segment. Games I have to talk about. I mean, yeah, I finished my review of EDF6. I'm doing some preview stuff I'm not able to talk about yet, but my next review is Concord and then Sea of Thieves. So I've been playing a little bit of Sea of Thieves. I don't have access to Concord yet. I probably will get it next week. And then yeah, I'm kind of on a week hiatus to get married and all that stuff, so I don't really have much to talk about. I played Destiny this week. I mean, we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah, we're getting to that here.
Yeah, I played a little bit of VR, but I've just been pretty casual with it. I'm not working on a ton right now and taking the opportunity to step away and do my last minute prep. So that's what I'm busy with. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's good. We got a lot to talk about with Bungie anyway, so we'll get there. Cool. Let's catch up on these super chats real quick. Mr. Don Lionheart is here.
Don Lionheart offers $5 to say, "Good morning, Bcast. Happy August. Shame that games are so great and the industry is such a mess. Stellar Blade was top tier, possibly getting the plat."
I really like Stellar Blade.
Nice. Yeah, some people really dig that game, no doubt. So
did nothing for me, but I know lots of people enjoy
it. Tom, thank you.
Hobbs offers £199. Are you guys playing Fallout London.
It's not that extra.
You sound like you're reading in text or text to speech, basically.
Yeah.
It's like,
it sounds like an AI that's broken.
Yeah. No, I have not played
job.
Fallout London, but I've heard great things. If you're not familiar with Fallout London, this is a massive expansion built for Fallout 4 by outside of Bethesda that was supposed to come out.
Mod, right? You call
it yes. It's an expansion, a mod expansion. Yeah, that was supposed to come out a few months ago. Then they updated Fallout 4 for Series X and PS5 randomly, and the developer had to go back and make some updates. So this just came out a week ago, maybe officially. But yeah, supposed to be quite impressive.
People seem really excited about it. I'm not much in the mod scene, but people seem to like it a lot. And yeah, I think the distinction about it being a mod is important. This is not an official product.
Correct.
I do think it's important, but I'm going to be on the side of mods here. Mods are cool. You should play them if time allows. And we've got some really cool stuff out of mods. There's entire games that came from mods. Let's not forget one of the best games I played in the last decade. The Forgotten City. What was it?
Forgotten City.
Yeah. Forgotten City. That was originally a Skyrim mod. I mean, that game is.
But sick. I didn't play it when it was a real game. I think Stanley Parable.
It was a mod first, and it would never become a game without that. So
I think Stanley Parable might have been a mod at some point.
I think you're right. That sounds about right. I think it was a 2 or something like that.
Yeah, some of the developers over time, through the years who have created really high production mods have been hired too by the studios. There was a Skyrim or maybe Oblivion, mod developer that was hired by Bethesda.
I know you said Oblivion, but I heard Bolivian. And I'm
Bolivian, yeah, it's a very different RPG.
Dude, but Elder Scrolls Bolivian is my favorite, man. It's like you just really they do away with the fantasy and just make it really grounded.
It's cool. Very down to earth. Yeah.
It's just the house hunters in Bolivia.
Rick Davis calls out, and this is an important distinction. So thank you for this, Rick. Just to be clear for the mod, you cannot have the updated next gen version of Fallout 4. You have to roll it back to use London. Once you install it, you can't play Fallout 4 unless you uninstall London. So basically, if you want to play London, that's what you're going to play, the aspect of that. So, okay, good to know. Thank you, Rick.
I'm interested.
Gamefire says,
we have no data on anywhere outside of the United States in Fallout. And I think that's by design, but Bethesda said they're never going to leave the United States, which I think is the right choice, by the way, because that's kind of part of the setting.
No data? You said no data. I didn't know what you meant.
Oh, like we just don't know what's going on outside of the United States in the Fallout universe. Like
in the Fallout universe. Okay, I was like, you're like, we have no data outside of the U.S., and I'm like,
yeah, because like the U.S. is like part of the setting in the Fallout universe, right? And so
like the internet.
It feels weird to go outside of it, but so I think this is like the perfect use case for a mod. Is just some like thing that is never going to coincide with what Bethesda's doing, and it's kind of an interesting experiment. I'm
cool concept
in this one. It is a cool concept.
Yeah,
this is like the internet theory that life outside of Australia in the Mad Max universe is totally fine.
Yeah,
Australia has just gone completely nuts.
I thought Mad Max was just supposed to be like modern day Australia. I didn't know it was the future. So
there you go.
Gamefire was asking if we get a review of Travis's wedding. You may have joined late. Yes, I'm going to be reviewing Travis's wedding. It will be formal. I will be the only one publishing a review. So
that we know of.
This is the end all be all score incoming. So be prepared. All right. Let's move over to our big conversation today, which is around Bungie and what's happened over there, how it relates to Destiny, how it relates to their future, how it relates to PlayStation and what they're doing. So let me start. And guys, if you have your notes up here, because this is a big topic, I want to kind of cover this in some sort of order. So let me give the specifics for people who don't know the specifics as to what occurred this week. So if you don't recall, last year, less than a year ago, I think, actually, they laid off around 100 people after posting a 45% decline in revenue at the company. At the time, they had about 1,200 people. So, something like 8% of their workforce at the time last year. This week, we got the announcement from Pete Parsons, CEO of Bungie, which we'll get to Pete here shortly. But 220 more roles being eliminated across the company, including some upper level roles as well. In addition to the 220 layoffs, they're shifting about 155 people to a separate game development, basically directly working with SIE, Sony Interactive Entertainment.
This is them spinning off. This is them spinning off a developing IP, right?
Yes,
that and then also other stuff. Because
they're going to be a functional entity after they're done with it, but it's a spin-off entity, right? They're working on something in-house.
And that's only 40 people of the 150 plus that are getting moved to SIE.
Okay. So 100 people last year, about, effectively from Bungie specifically, about 375, give or take, moving out here, which, doing the math, right, depending on how they've hired, leaves them with somewhere around, I think they said they're just over 800 now, and I think is what is in Pete's kind of official document. But additionally, I think some of the biggest news about this too was that it was initially reported, and Travis, again, I know you have more details than I do here. It was initially reported that some of the Bungie legends like Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy were part of the layoffs, but then it was later corrected that they actually, because of what was going on, they chose to leave. So if you don't know who those people are, like Luke Smith has been with Bungie forever. He literally helped write Halo 3. He is considered absolutely not, I won't say critical, but maybe critical to Destiny and foundational to the IP. So some of those people have parted ways as well.
My friend.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll hand to you, Travis. I know you have more on this. There's a couple other specific things I want to call out, but just at a high level about this specific news, we talked when they acquired Bungie in 2022 on this show. And one of the things you were mostly concerned about as someone who covers this stuff really closely is PlayStation, basically eventually picking apart Bungie for, their talent and, the result being that Bungie would eventually become a shell of what it once was. And it's sad to say, if you look at their history and where they sit as of after this layoff, with how many people they've lost, how many critical people they've lost, especially some of their top tier talent that have been there from the beginning, it feels like that's basically come to fruition.
Yep. Yeah. So, when the acquisition happened, I think a lot of people were pretty excited about it because it was a new era for Bungie and they were saying all these things that were very optimistic. I was one of the only people who immediately was devastated because I kind of saw the writing on the wall in terms of what was happening, right? Like, I don't have a problem with entrepreneurs who start businesses getting their payday, but I do think Bungie decided not to bet on themselves with this one, right? They said, hey, we've reached kind of the end. And the future I envisioned for Bungie was that they were going to replace the Bethesdas of the world, that kind of like larger independent studio place that they could sit. And I wanted them to bet on themselves and eventually sell for a lot more money, years down the road, once they have kind of had played that role, similar to how Bethesda was positioned as a large private company making games on a AAA scale. And I think them not doing that was inevitably going to lead to this outcome, right? Right when they got acquired, they said it's not going to lead to any layoffs or changes in the company, which if you've ever been involved in an acquisition, is complete and utter bullshit, straight up. Like, as soon as I read that, I was like, all right, they're lying to you. So don't believe anything else they say, because I don't even think they believe that. So you knew that this was going to happen eventually. It was just a matter of when. But I don't want to say that it's just Sony, right? Like, the way I think of it is Sony made the right choice with this acquisition. This was great for them because either Bungie was going to surprise them and do some really cool, interesting things, and they were going to profit greatly from having that in their under their umbrella, or things were going to go bad the other direction, which seems to have happened, and they were going to scrap it for parts and greatly improve their capacity to create live service games and online multiplayer games and all that stuff. And so I think it's win-win for them. The problem is that, that Bungie basically consigned themselves to this fate by doing this with Sony. And so now you see things like that project that they really liked that's now been taken out of Bungie. It's now going to be part of a Sony studio. It'll almost certainly be PlayStation exclusive, which was something that they said that they were going to keep their games multi-platform, or make those decisions themselves.
Which I think is an important part of the story, right? One of the reasons the spinoff happens is because you contractually agreed to let Bungie do whatever they wanted with their IP. So one of
Correct.
the options that you have is to pull the IP out. And that's not a surprise that that's happening here when it looks for all the world like Sony wasn't happy with the way that the entity was functioning on the whole. So yeah, I think that's important when we talk about contracts and things that are wins and losses, and people are always quick to jump on these things, that when Bungie says we got independent control over our IP, one of the second order things that can happen there is you've incentivized your parent company to start cutting pieces off your flank if they don't believe in your management anymore.
Correct. Yeah. And I also think that that part was always going to happen. I don't think there's like a world where they were launching new IPs that weren't already announced, and that Sony was just like standing by and going, yep, okay, you can do what you want. Maybe if they were super, super successful and Sony was just looking at them as a money-making machine that they didn't want to touch. But I don't think that was ever going to happen, right? Bungie has shown that they have management issues and that they're a little bit creative led, which sometimes means that they're not always making the best business decisions.
But
which I don't think is
option. You don't want to kill the MCU in the crib if you accidentally got it.
Exactly. And so I think there was a possibility of that happening, but it wasn't a strong one, especially with Bungie's track record. But yeah, my point is I don't want to lay it at the feet of Sony. Like Sony made the right purchasing decision. And I think they're probably making a decision that they think makes sense now. The problem was that Bungie leadership didn't have the courage to actually believe in their company and sold it, I think, before it had reached its prime. And they also were badly mismanaged. Like, if you look at Sony's decision to do this, it makes sense. They clearly lost the plot. They focused on like 5 or 6 other new IPs, a lot of which got cut, some of which are way, way past the date that they were supposed to be delivered. And they were just trying all these new things. And it sounds like they were trying to focus on too many things and lost focus on the thing that actually is making the money today, which is Destiny. And I'm not like, look, I just got done saying on Thursday that they should end Destiny at this point. Which I really do believe, and we can talk about that more. But like, I'm not the guy who says like just keep focusing on Destiny forever. I actually think that that's probably backwards looking. But I think they had some serious questionable management. Like, if you can't even get your second project off of the ground, and you're already spinning off into a third-person shooter Destiny game, and all these other projects that got canceled or were being worked on at the same time. And I think Sony bought Bungie because of their brain trust that they wanted to acquire, and because of some of the other IPs that they looked at, specifically this 40-person team that is now being turned into its own studio at PlayStation. So yeah, man, it's a huge bummer. I saw this beautiful path for Bungie where they were a big independent studio, which, by the way, is what they said they wanted to be when they broke free from Activision. And that was kind of the dream they sold all of us Destiny players and Bungie fans, and then almost immediately turned their back on that idea. So it's a bummer, dude. I'm super bummed about all this, but not surprising at all.
Yeah, so on that point, I'll transition for us to talk about Britt's super chat finally. Britt, thanks for hanging with us. Because go ahead and read that, and then I want to pose a couple questions to you guys.
Cool. Britt Comier, for $50, says, Bungie layoffs are the latest symptom of a long line of leadership failures. When was the last time Bungie delivered anything on time? All the way back to Activision days, they've had late releases. They've lacked focus for years. Yeah, I'll real quickly, I'll agree with the lack of focus. I would say delivering on time has never been their thing, and I don't think that that's bad. Like, even Halos were, delayed, almost all of them,
or cut,
cut completely. So I don't think that's their problem. But I agree with the lack of focus, and I definitely agree with the leadership failures.
I think it is a problem. I think when we look at the video game industry, it's a much more competitive space than it even used to be at the time of the Xbox entering with Halo. And yeah, Bungie's had issues from Myth to Marathon to Halo. That's the way they've been operated. I've talked on my channel and here about the fact that at some point you have to ask who the asshole at the table is, because Bungie can't get along with anybody that's bought it ever. Right? Like, Bungie divorced from Xbox, Bungie divorced from Activision. This is not a divorce as much as it's a murder, but it's still not a relationship that's healthy between Sony and Bungie. And so I've always said, you do have to ask, whether or not they're running things properly, because they're having a problem with every partner that they've ever had.
Yes.
And yes, Travis, you've said on the positive side that some of that's a function of creativity and that they are more creatively driven than business driven in certain important ways. And that might well be, but at some point the chickens come home to roost. And it turns out that point is summer, fall of 2024. And I think it's easy for us to say it would have been better for them to bet on themselves and to run this out for another decade and see if they can become a big behemoth. But we do have to remember that there are human beings that have equity plays in these companies. And at some point, it just feels like it's time to cash out, right? And yes, you can be upset at them for quote unquote lying or at least omitting what was happening during the acquisition, because that's an exit day for the people that have equity in Bungie. But I do think that there's been kind of an overlap of media coverage of this with the layoffs and things. Like you said, Ains, we're going to talk about Pete. There was an attack piece in Kotaku about Pete Parsons buying a bunch of really expensive cars over the last year. Yep. And I think it's fair to say the optics of a person that sold their equity buying all this fancy stuff right before they're going to lay off 300 people or 200 people and spin off another 100 is bad. I think that's bad leadership in some important ways, but that's his money. Like, he earned that money not from CEOing today or yesterday or last year. He earned that money from CEOing, running, and helping the company in its baby days when you got all that equity. Like, that's what founders do. That's what these people get their money for. And I think it's very easy to look in hindsight with 2020 and say, well, that's a lot of money and he didn't earn it right now and he's going to fire all these people and it's very bad. And I understand the optics of buying those cars and apparently telling people that he was going to fire to come look at his cars the weekend
that was
before.
Crazy. I think that was the reason I think people got upset with all the stories of just like the complete lack of
I was gonna get to that.
And I worked in big law, right? So I've been at those dinners and conversations where even as a well-paid young associate in big law, you're still not getting paid like the senior partners. And the senior partners will just be like, well, why don't you buy the suite at Disney or whatever? And it's like, well, because you don't pay me enough, sir. But it's like, that's not the conversation that you have with the guy that gets $4 to $7 million a year, right? Like that can happen. I understand how that is not good. That's not good optically, but I do think people conflate these issues. When you get paid for equity, it's not operational money for the company. It's not money that he can easily transfer back to saving their jobs if Sony doesn't want it, if they're not willing to give a note or issue more equity. And so these conversations.
There's also a lot of kind of misinformation about like where money goes when you get acquired. Like Cog on the show, the last word was like saying Bungie's going to have so much more money now. And I was like, that's not where that money's going, dude. Like, the money is going into the pockets of the people that sold the company, as it should. I don't have a problem with how Pete Parsons spends his money. I do have a problem with the fact that he made his money by selling his company under the bridge. That's my problem, right? Like that's great that the shareholders got paid out. Again, that is the end game, right? I want to
say this. I don't know Pete Parsons, right? So this is not me defending any one individual, but I do want to say the way that this deal was structured with those retention bonuses was designed to give a certain amount of comfort to the people that were at the company, right?
Totally.
I've been in the room when founders are negotiating these things. When you're negotiating for retention bonuses as part of the purchase price of a company, it is because you want the people that helped build your company, that helped put you in that CEO office, to be protected in some way during this acquisition. And it's not forever, right? It doesn't last forever, but it is money that they got that the equity holders didn't get. And I have a whole video on my channel talking about the fact that that is what happens with when you talk about the full purchase price and this much is in retention bonuses. That means they essentially gave that to their employees instead of taking it and putting it in their own pockets. That's Correct. Not a get out of jail free card. That's not anything about this particular individual, except to note that these are a lot more complicated kind of structures and questions than people are willing to give them on Twitter or in some of these articles.
It is the money to go to employee retention is obviously a benefit to the workers, but it's also in PlayStation's interest, because the reason they acquired Bungie was to hire the employees there. So I think it was both
I'm not saying it's not what Sony wanted to do. I think that's fair. But what I'm saying is once Sony agrees to spend $3.x billion, the retention bonuses and the equity price, those are split between the people that own the stock and the people that are working for the company.
Totally.
And so that is those ownership forces, whether it's Pete or anybody else that had equity in Bungie, having more money go to the workers themselves. So
that's in theory though, right?
No, it's not in theory. They earned those retention bonuses. It's more in the year.
No. I'm not saying they didn't earn them. I'm saying that I think where people are struggling here, right, is this is not like one person coming out and complaining they were fired, right? You have droves of people with many, many examples with receipts basically showing like how the employees there at Bungie over the past couple of years have been working, so much so that they were, trying to buy food for each other, really struggling in a lot of senses, in terms of how they were expected to do things and get Final Shape out the door. What we've heard about many times, we've talked about this a lot of times on the show, right? Just overall crunch, overall just the workers at the core level, right? Your base level, your foundational workers not being taken care of. And I think, as you pointed out, one of the prime examples was shown where the one dev was shown, Pete showed her, his new cars or whatever, and then fired her 2 days later. And again, to your point about, what he does with his money over here and buying cars. Okay, that's one thing. But I think that's being used as an example of like that spending your money how you want to. That's one thing, right? But to your point, I think it was like 1.2 billion of the 3.6 was retention, something like that, right? An estimate. And it's like, okay, so, doing simple math, right? You're a 1,200 person studio at the time. You lay off 100 people a year later. So say you're, 1,200 people and you've got all this money supposedly for employee retention. But then, why do you have so many employees now being let go? So many employees struggling to make ends meet, so much crunch in your studio. The math just doesn't math at some point, right? And you start to raise questions of like, okay, where is all that money going? Because it's clearly you're not talking about a 15,000 person studio.
Which one are you talking about? Because the operational budget of Bungie is a different question than the acquisition cost.
True. I'm talking about just the money in general of their income from, which we're going to get to in a different comment, because prior to the layoffs last year, they noted a 45% decline in revenue, right? Everything we've seen with Final Shape has been positive. And so when you combine of maybe the past 6 to 12 months of performance combined with post-acquisition employee retention money that was built into the acquisition, the structure of what's happened over the past 2 years just seems very at odds with one another.
But let's talk about Bungie's
structure. Was it a decline in revenue, or was it 45% they missed their projection?
That's a good question. I'll double check
that, right?
Let me double check. Go ahead.
Okay, but we can talk about this from a structural perspective without even getting into the specifics of Lightfall and the Final Shape. Although I would note that when products come out, it's a trailing function, right? Like these decisions are made without knowledge of exactly
how much. The decisions were made prior to Final Shape, they said.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. They're going to be made before you know exactly how much Final Shape is going to make, because you don't know it right now, today, about how Final Shape is going to do. It was received well critically, and a lot of your fan base has said nice things about it, but you don't know whether that's going to penetrate the market. You don't know whether that's going to be enough to run the company. And I want to talk about
how it has performed, by the way.
I'm sorry.
We know how it has performed. I don't know if you guys know that, but there was also separate reporting about how the Final Shape sold fewer copies than Lightfall, which makes sense. Like
when you burn the bridge,
exactly. The kind of cadence with Destiny is when they have a bad year, the year after always sells poorly because the players who bought the previous year feel burned and don't want to go. So you kind of have to have 2 good years in a row to really knock it out of the park. So I think it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to sell not great because of the damage that Lightfall did. But the way that management sold this, as companies always do, if you've ever been a part of a company with crunch, which I've spent most of my career in those spaces, they tell you, this is do or die. This is make or break for us. And they really push you to get a product out. And it seems like the decision to get rid of these guys was probably made before Lightfall or Final Shape was even out the door.
It was. So they said that.
I think that there's a lot of like manipulative kind of stuff happening in terms of how
that's where I was going back to the leadership aspect of this, right? It feels like there's multiple failures of leadership.
I want to talk about that leadership, because this is a single product company with, did you say 1,200 people?
1,600. Now it's down to 800. So they've lost 50% of their employees over the past 2 years.
Okay, so just from the outside looking in, like that's way too many people to have in your structure as it is, right? So you talk about layoffs, and these people are human beings. I don't want anybody to lose their job. This is unfair. I know all these things, but in the video game industry right now, you don't have companies with more than 1,000 people building their entire livelihood and their chance of success on one product line.
Well, they weren't doing that, just to be clear. The reason that they got their employee size like 5x'd is because they're working on 5 times as many projects. Now, that in itself could be the issue, right?
You don't run it. Okay, so you don't run a company with 4 pre-market products at the same time. I mean, however you want to look at it, it's bloated and it's not putting enough stuff out into the market.
Yeah, they had 4 pre-market products, and they also had delays on a product that was supposed to be out sooner. And they started their 3rd one as they were canceling the 2nd one, and then started the 4th and 5th one while the 3rd one was getting delayed, and while the first product was on a downward trajectory. There's so many problems with
which all goes back to leadership. Everything you guys are talking about.
At a fundamental level, I just don't understand how this happened. And I saw I think Alex Dice Twice was saying, like, it was either selling the company or it wouldn't exist anymore. True, because of the decisions that were made. And I get why you would want to sell the company if you saw yourself in the position you saw yourself, but because you spiraled out of control and approved all these projects you shouldn't have. But it's still a question of, do you want Bungie to exist in the future and course correct now and handle those problems as an independent developer and publisher, as you said you were going to? Or do you want to basically sell the company knowing the future that's coming and kind of give up on it? Bungie has a pretty good chance of not being a thing, like, kind of soon, right? Like, that's a real reality. And I don't think you would have had that if they would have stayed with them, stuck the course and fixed the problems internally, because Sony's going to scrap them for parts, and maybe they should, right? At this point, maybe that's the good play for Sony, but I don't think it's the good play for Bungie. I don't think it's a good play for Bungie fans or players of the games. And it really annoys me. Like, everybody's got to make their own business decisions. I get that the board of directors and the people start the company, they want their payout, but I think that they sold for pennies on what could have been a much bigger acquisition down the road.
But by counterpoint, if they didn't change their ways in the last couple of years and they got to this point without having sold, then Sony way overpaid a couple of years ago, because there's a fire sale for Bungie assets right now.
Yep.
Yeah. I think they saw the risk and they decided to bet against themselves. So I get that, especially if you're seeing the writing on the wall of, like, okay, well, we would have to do a lot of stuff to get out of this. I get that. It's just not the path I would have taken.
Sure, but they hadn't demonstrated that they had the right leadership to make the correct decisions they needed to make, right? For years they've demonstrated poor decision making, which probably led them to the point that you didn't like, Travis, which is, let's just sell and get our payout and call it a day.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, all these problems are fixable. If you are a shareholder, if you're on the board of directors, you can fix these problems. I just think they didn't have the stomach for it, which is a weird thing coming from a company that has always been super bold and has always performed best when they had their back against the wall and defied expectations in terms of the stuff that they could create and all of that stuff. And I feel like they bet against themselves. And as soon as they did that, this outcome was inevitable.
So I think where the rub is with a lot of people, and I'll get to Chris's super chat here too, but I'm speaking for what I've seen, and a lot of the employees have been let go. The rub is what we've talked about, which is, if we've determined that the failures are really at the executive leadership level, right? Direction, planning, etc., right? For the studio itself. And now they find themselves in this situation where they've burnt out, they've had too many projects, they can't deliver all the things we've just discussed. Why is it always the workers that pay the price?
Because they don't have the power.
I think that's just the annoyance. That's where and which I rightfully understand, because we've all been in those situations. I know the three of us have. Endless people have been in that situation, but I think that's where the outrage is coming from. Ex-employees and people within the studio and people who know Bungie is exactly that point. It's like Pete and others have run this poorly for a long time now.
Yeah, they ran it into the iceberg. But I mean, I would do the opposite. I would make the counterpoint, right? This is why the C-suite is important. This is why they make the money, is because if they sneeze the wrong way, they can cost 600 people their jobs.
100%. But why do they not ever face any of the repercussions? I think is what these people are.
Well, they sometimes do when their companies fail and they have to file for bankruptcy and that sort of stuff. Sure. There is risk for entrepreneurs, no matter how you slice it. But I think the idea that a development team can be pushed to the max, embrace the crunch culture, put out a 92 Metacritic expansion that clearly shows they did their job, right? And then still fall short. Yes. I think that really, really sucks for the workers. And it does kind of point to a leadership failure.
And to your point, later find out that all that crunch and all of what they delivered and supposedly how excellent it is. I haven't played it. Everyone I know who plays Destiny says it's excellent. Later find out, we were already fired. We were crunching to get this out the door, but the decision was already made.
Correct.
And by the way, Destin's here to make fun of you, Travis. Shout out to Destin.
He's there. He's making fun of me. See you on Tuesday, buddy. You're at Ains's table, so good luck with that.
Nice. I finally ran into Destin at Summer Game Fest for the first time. So, yeah, cool. Good luck with that.
Nice. Ains and Destin at the wedding.
Yeah,
I want that to be part of the review.
Well, I have
that'll be in my review. Destin, I'm reviewing Travis's wedding. If you didn't hear, formal review. We're gonna try and get it on Metacritic. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
he's being judged.
Yeah, you guys are at the cool gaming industry table, so I'm kind of jealous. That'll be fun.
Is Cog with us too?
Cog, well, Ubantis was, but he got COVID, and then Tom Marks, all the IGN people are going to be at that table.
Very cool.
You got a pretty cool table. I'm kind of jealous that I'm not going to be sitting with you. It's all good.
I see Destin referencing the Respawn purchase. I think certainly even at the time, but now in hindsight, the Respawn purchase is perhaps the biggest deal in gaming history. And that was $400 million. That is nothing for what Respawn has brought to EA.
Yeah.
Yes. That was a steal. Yes.
And look,
and Insomniac too. Sorry.
I would have loved for Respawn to stay independent. I just think these companies are selling before they reach the apex of their creativity and their potential. And I get why it's a risky business. It's one of the toughest industries to succeed in. But I think there is a giant void in the games industry of these kind of like not Goliath companies, but the big enough to have a major impact, somewhere in between Microsoft and Annapurna. There's this void of like Bethesda like companies when they were independent that is just gone. They're all getting sucked away. And I think it's taking a lot of creativity out of the space. And, it's like watching the middle class disappear. It really hurts me, so I would love to see that come back. And these companies just keep selling, I think, before they've really reached that point. And now we're seeing companies get bought when they haven't even put out a game yet. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's Firewalk was one of those. Yeah, exactly. So Destin says this quote here: Bungie does about $200 million in revenue, so I think Sony vastly overpaid. Was from Michael Proctor back in 2022 with the acquisition numbers. But Britt, I wanted to thank you for your super chat. I'm glad
they overpaid. If you look at them as trying to get revenue out of that company, I think they were trying to get creatives and brain trust out of that resources, and I think they got that. So I mean, it doesn't make sense if you're looking at just the output, but this is a long tail vision play for Sony in my eyes. It's them saying we do not have the expertise to do any of the things that the future looks like the games industry is going to be like in the future. And this is a company that we know does it well. So let's grab the people who know live service, who know the stuff, and bring them in.
Well, you keep saying Sony, but I mean, that was Jim Ryan's vision, I think we can say. And it's worth noting that Sony's under new management themselves.
Correct. But yeah, and they did fire a ton of these guys, Destin, to your point. Yep, 100%. But they did it kind of after they scrapped for parts. These 150 people aren't the first people to move out of Bungie and take on roles in other parts of Sony. And I think
We don't mean the creatives that came up with the circles versus triangles and like the Destiny lore. They mean creatives of like people figuring out the economics and maybe the 30-second shooty bits and that kind of thing. So it's not the Luke Smiths of the world as far as I understand it.
Probably not, but yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Smith's deal that he took included working at a different Sony studio. We don't actually know yet, I don't think. But
no, but I hope he's at 343. I'm selfish.
That would be great. That would be great. I doubt it. But yeah, I mean, this is terrible. I think Sony probably got what they wanted, but it's terrible for employees. I think it's terrible for players. It's certainly already had a pretty devastating impact on Destiny as a game. And I hope they just let it go.
Yeah. We did have another super chat I want to get to from my good buddy Chris Carpenter relating to this too, to what we're discussing.
Chris Carpenter, brother to Sabrina Carpenter, offers $9.99 to say, Travis, has anyone looked at old Bungie news articles comparing sales numbers and, quote, exceeding expectations, unquote, to the reported comment that DLCs are not hitting where they need to be? Titans eat crayons. Yeah, so
Titans are great.
Yeah, Titans are great. Also, you should know that hunters are now the crayon eaters. They've been that way since for a while, since Stasis was added, and that became the forehead class. So sorry to break it to you, but that ship has sailed. Yes, there's a ton of stuff to look at and say that the exceeded expectations and that they were bragging about their sales numbers. Some of that could have been posturing because they knew that they were shopping the company around to be acquired. Some of it is probably accurate, although I think the important thing to keep in mind is that they grew a ton in recent years, and that means that they had to generate a whole lot more revenue to justify that. And they were not, I guarantee you, we're not generating that through Destiny. I think the plan was to generate it through the 3 or 4 games that would eventually manifest. But I think they got overambitious. They proved too many projects, especially knowing Bungie's kind of willingness to delay and all that stuff. And it just didn't work out. I will say, I don't think the game delays are that big of a deal. I think if you look at Bungie's track record, they delay games, but when they delay them, the results are good. Final Shape was delayed. It was good. All the Halo games,
general slowness to their process. So, I mean, I think the delay is only when the iceberg kind of gets above the surface level for us.
Yeah.
But I suspect they're also slow on the internals that Sony would have been looking at the same time.
I think they probably are, but they produce the results. I think the problem here is pretty clearly to me that they didn't understand their own content pipeline tendencies and approved way too many projects and hired way too many people before they were ready to do so. And I think a slower growth plan probably would have been more successful. And they stuck by Destiny too long, frankly. That's the other part of the story that I really wanted to get into, which is that Destiny has been dying a really slow death for a while, and it's sort of been an open secret to everybody who plays Destiny. We've all known it. And Bungie made really zero adjustments to try to account for this. Their player age has gone up because everybody who plays Destiny and loves it is continuing to play it, but they are not acquiring new players, and they haven't for years. And this has been something that every Destiny player has known about because of their player onboarding experience, which is atrocious. And they've tried to fix it in the past, and it hasn't worked out. And they've talked about how it hasn't worked out. But they have never really put major resources behind converting Destiny into the type of game that could attract new players. Like, no one from Generation Alpha plays this game. There's probably very few Gen Z people who play this game. It's basically like millennials and older, and their player base was going up because if you didn't get on the Destiny train when it left the station, in 2014, it's really hard to get on it now. Especially since, as we mentioned earlier in this episode, you can't go back and play old seasons and catch up on the story and all that stuff. And they didn't make a good narrative or expansion model that allowed people to hop on that train. And so I think rather than maybe approving 4 new projects, they probably should have put some serious effort into recalibrating Destiny and making it palatable for new players, because their only option was to see their player base slowly shrink because you're not going to gain any new players with the current system you have. And so then your entire livelihood depends on player retention, and you can't grow as a business with just player retention. So they really, really, I think, committed to trying to keep their Destiny players just playing the game and spending money in the game. That was never going to be a model for success, certainly not for growth. So it's kind of brutal.
Well, I tend to agree. I would say that when the Destiny project started up, it was already skewed older, right? When you talk about the Traveler and you talk about the esoterica in the Destiny kind of DNA, it's more Isaac Asimov and hard sci-fi than it is Halo Marines and shooting colorful aliens that wee at you while they throw grenades up in the air. It's a very different kind of feeling game anyway that already skewed towards an older kind of hard sci-fi fandom. And then you give it a 10-year runway. It is no surprise to me that it's one of the oldest skewing live service games in video games.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can ignore a lot of the sci-fi pomp. It's there for people who want it. But like a lot of the people I know are just like foreheads who are just there because of the shiny colors and the shooting. And so I think it can have a broad appeal. It's just they did not design their game that way. I also don't think a 10-year runtime really matters. Like WoW has gained new players all the time because they make it easy to get into that game. You don't have to worry about the history. They don't set up all these artificial barriers that make it really unpleasant to play Destiny at this point in time. And Bungie was very, very slow, and also their attempts were extremely weak and almost seemed half-hearted to fix that problem. And it was something every Destiny player liked. They were like, I like this game and I'm in it, but I can't get any of my friends to play. I did an episode of The Last Word where I brought two of my friends over who'd never played Destiny, and I had them start playing Destiny, and then we interviewed them on the show about the player experience, and then we interviewed them a year later to see where they were now, and both of them had stopped playing the game for different reasons. And it was an experiment I had enough time to think of and then run a year in advance with that idea in mind. And in that time, Bungie made no attempts to improve it. I mean, it's crazy.
The onboarding is god-awful. There's no question.
The onboarding is horrible, and it's something everybody's known. And so I just think, you're betting on 4 projects at once. You won't fix the Destiny thing. Like, where is your win con? Like, I just don't see it anywhere in Bungie's current setup. And
which goes back to what again?
Leadership, man. My God, it goes to leadership.
Yeah, that's the point. So, Chris, thank you for the super chat. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. I think we've kind of covered that ad nauseum. By the way, Destin's making fun of you. I like shiny gun go boom.
Mm-hmm. He's a hunter. Checks out.
But yeah, you're exactly right though. And it's funny you mentioned WoW, because that was one of the examples I was going to bring up, especially with their new expansion coming here shortly too. But they've reinvented themselves, and live service games, like we've seen, have ups and downs, right? But there's certainly ways, we've talked about this ad nauseum, that Bungie could have done better with Destiny to onboard new players and invite new players to that universe, which is a shame they didn't, because there's a lot to love there. But yeah, even me, who love that game from the start, we've talked about this. I know Hoag's tried. I've tried to get back into it, and it just it's baffling trying to get into that game.
I really liked Final Shape. I really liked the ending that they put out there, but I also haven't played it since I finished it.
Yeah. I haven't even played it, so
it's good, but yeah, the I don't know if you guys have seen what the new plan is for Destiny, but it's basically like let it die a death by 1,000 cuts.
It basically
it's so bad.
The funny thing is reading about their plan of like, well, we're gonna narrow down the team, do smaller updates, they may be free. It's literally what 343 just did with Infinite. I mean, it's very similar in what they've discussed.
Except 343's entire strategy is multiplayer based, which is way more sustainable. And Destiny's is like, we'll deliver mediocre, underwhelming content until people truly stop playing our game, and then we'll kill it. That's basically what their plan is right now. It's crazy. So I mean, I get that they're just in a really rough spot, but it kind of, I mean, I already see the white flag. It's not fully raised yet, but they're ironing it. They're ironing that flag, getting ready to raise.
Oh yeah. As soon as I saw those words and the way it was being talked about, I'm like, all right, so what's next then?
By the way, it's also the thing that Destiny players hate the most, by the way. They hate the in-between seasons and the smaller updates, and like it just annoys a lot of players. Me especially, I'm like really outspoken on that stuff. So it's like, cool, Destiny's becoming all bad content. And, you know, it's none of the cool big expansions that actually kept people playing. And their multiplayer situation is abysmal. So yeah, we're basically done.
I view it like the MCU. Like Endgame was a perfectly fine time to end. Final Shape is a perfectly fine time to end.
I agree.
Just call it.
So that's what I was saying on The Last Word. Like, I hope that they just end Destiny because I don't want to see what it will become. I think players are sick of it. And honestly, I think at this point, they have to go all in on Marathon if they want to save their company. And I don't think Marathon has the resources to be as big as it needs to be for the company to succeed. So if it were me, I would say, guys, do the layoffs. Destiny is dead as of tomorrow. We'll keep the servers up, but we're not making new content for it. All of our teams moving over to Marathon. We're going to make that the best game we possibly can and bet everything on that, because Bungie has shown that when they bet on themselves and they put all of their effort behind stuff, they defy the odds, right? They're the people who said, we're going to try to make something better than Halo. And then they made Destiny and people loved it. And so I think that they can do that, but I just think if they are spending a lot of time trying to maintain this living corpse and not going all in on Marathon, then they truly have no chance, because Destiny is eventually going to die and Marathon is not looking like it's going to do what it needs to do. So I think they should just kill Destiny. The other thing that they would benefit from is
sounds like a Final Fantasy. They should kill.
Yeah, exactly. I think they need to go for Final Fantasy. I think Marathon's their play. And only because it's the only one that's close enough to market to actually do that. And there's not a ton of extraction shooters that compete with them that I think are at the level that Bungie can produce. So I think they have a legit chance. But that only works if they go all in. And the other benefit they would get is if they kill Destiny, then they can let it rest, and distance makes the heart go fonder. And I think eventually they come back and they say Destiny 3's here in 6 or 7 years when they've had a chance to build it, and they can benefit from some of the distance from the franchise. But I don't think they do that if they keep Destiny around and keep reminding us that it's still here and that it's not very good. So.
Well, I mean, I think one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to Concord is that it feels so much like Destiny to me in terms of playing it. So I wouldn't miss the Destiny experience. In fact, I think while I was clearing off my PlayStation, I just deleted it because it's however many hundreds of gigs. But I am not as convinced as you are that Marathon is the basket where I would be putting my eggs. At least as it's described.
They have no other basket.
I think Travis's point is, what else were they going to spin up a new IP right now? Because now you're 4 or 5 years out.
Are internally, I just don't think
the problem is none of the baskets are close enough to being done to hit when they need it to hit. And so I'm not saying like that. I think Marathon is like poised to blow it out of the water, but it certainly isn't right now with the level of team that they have committed to it. And I honestly think if they put all the resources behind it and made it their Final Fantasy last ditch effort, that it could be successful, because I believe in the talent at Bungie. And I think that there's an opportunity to make Marathon the first really big extractions shooter that, you know, I think they have a chance. I really do. Maybe not now as the team is currently configured, but that's Ains is exactly right. My point is they have no other shot. It would take too long to get anything else ready to enter the market.
And shouldn't they have learned their lesson that spread too thin? Like, and I know an 800-person studio sounds large on paper. An 800-person studio in 2024 for AAA development is not a large studio. I mean, it's a big studio, but when you're talking about maintaining a game like Destiny and building a game like Marathon, which, by the way, is an extraction shooter, of which the competition is exceedingly fierce in the marketplace, of getting someone to enjoy an extraction shooter for an extended period of time.
I would say it's competing with the arena shooters and battle royales of the world. Like
you're saying,
I don't think it is, because those games are multiplayer competitive, and this is cooperative. And so I think it's PvPE,
isn't it?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's PvE. Aren't extraction shooters Oh,
No.
you're right, because it's got kind of a darkness zone element to it. So yeah, I think it has some commonalities. My point is, I think there's a lot of extraction shooters out there, but I don't think the competition's that fierce in like a AAA space. I think they have an opportunity to be, a tent pole in that like subgenre and a major one.
They have the opportunity. I mean, we'll see. I don't want to doubt Bungie. Bungie's mechanics, depending on who they've lost, but their mechanics are always beautiful. So we'll see.
Most of the thing they lost, by the way, was not the like gameplay people. It was like artists. It was people making environments. It was people designing the worlds and working on that stuff. Like they lost a lot of like creative world builder artist people. It was most of the, and QA is
shit's important
gone too. QA is also incredible.
QA always but get me ranting about QA.
It's also possible that they're done with the art on Marathon, and so they were legitimately like, we don't need you guys until we're ready to work on.
But it's a live service game. You can't be done.
I know.
And
none of this is good. None of this is
good. None of it makes sense. Yeah, QA is like, so I've run QA departments, and it's the thing that always drives me crazy, not to go off on a tangent, is executive leadership does not understand the importance of QA and testing. They never do, no matter how much you stress it, and they're always some of the first people to get cut and treated poorly. And I think the value of QA in departments like that in game development is misunderstood and underappreciated, and that will come back to bite them. That's what I would say. So we've been talking about this a while. Let's get caught up on a couple comments real quick. By the way, Destin said I was already done after Final Shape. Now I'm 1,000% done. So.
Yeah, no, he canceled Fireteam chat forevermore. So I think that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah. Tao, it's $10 super chat.
Tao Zochi offers $10 to say, I played D1 up until before Taken King. As someone who never touched D2, they don't respect all of D2 by vaulting content, so I will never touch it. But that's me.
I do think the vaults pissed a lot of people off, certainly me.
I think you are an example of a player that like fell off, which I think is fine. It's going to happen no matter what. Their problem really was that they had no way to gain new players. But yeah, there's always going to be churn. Churn is natural.
What did vaulting content have to do with gaining new players? I missed the point there.
No, I'm just saying he's pointing out something that made him leave. And I think everybody who leaves Destiny has their own reasons for doing it. It's like different things that triggered it. I just got bored, or I didn't like that they vaulted, or I didn't like that they made this change to Crucible. But I think that's all fine. You're going to get churn no matter what. The problem is when you have churn and you have no way to gain new players.
Oh, yeah. I got you. Okay, yes.
But that's absolving their decision-making. You're going to lose people anyway, so it doesn't matter what we do. And vaulting stuff that I had paid for particularly irked.
Yep. Which is why they reversed the decision and said they're never going to vault anything ever again.
While leaving the stuff in the vault?
They're bringing it back. They're pulling it out of the vault and adding it back to the game piece by piece. So I think we were going to get there eventually. But I mean, look, you can point out a million different reasons to leave Destiny, but you can only point at like 3 to join it now. Like it's very tough to sell joining the game today. And I think that's its problem, is my point.
Okay. Tao, thank you. Tao also had a member comment.
Tao Zochi, a member for 20 months, also says, "Sup, chat sup, Bitcasters. Ains, you're outnumbered 2 haired people to 1 baldy. You need reinforcements, lol. Call a barber, have fun, all."
I'm never going to get used to Travis's reads of these.
Yeah, you read that very strangely. Also, I need to get Cog on here or something. That'll help. So, Tal, thank you as always, brother. And Debbie W back.
Debbie Dubs for $5 says, for context, the World of Warcraft team by itself is 800 people.
Yeah. But they're very focused on what they're developing, right? This goes back to the conversation about being spread too thin, multiple IPs in the work. Like the World of Warcraft team is the World of Warcraft team. That is what they do. And I think that's why
have the benefit of a pretty slow content delivery model because they have so much in their backlog. People are just playing that game. They're playing old content. And then when they play new content, they're able to play it. But there's like lots of games that do that, right? Like Final Fantasy 14 and what have you. Destiny is like trying to make content every week. It's a very different model. It requires a bigger team. It could be more profitable, but it's also a bigger risk. And Destiny was never really done. It never really reached its full potential in terms of its live service stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah. Debbie, thank you as always. All right. Probably go ahead and close out that conversation unless there's any other comment you want to mention about Bungie before we move to Gamescom.
One more comment. I would just like the record to reflect, if there's any way to kind of document this anywhere, that I'm sad.
Please let the official record reflect that Travis is sad.
I actually have that at the bottom of every show note. So
fine. You do? It's at the end of run a show.
It says Travis is sad.
Travis is sad again.
Travis is sad.
No further context.
I think
Destin would like to add that you are short as well.
I'm not that short. I'm 5'8". It's like, I mean, I'm kind of short. I'm kind of average.
You're average. 5'9's average. Yeah.
What are you, Ains? Are you tall? You look tall on camera.
I'm 6'1".
Okay, you're gonna make me look short. I'm used to being
my
short.
My wife is 5 foot, so
nice. My fiance is like 5'1", I think. So they'll be shorties.
There you go.
I will say I'm tall enough to make my soon-to-be wife look small, and that's really all I need. You know, your dating pool is directly related to how tall you are. It's a problem.
Hogs, how tall are you? I wouldn't even know where to guess with you. You could be tall or short.
Well, yeah, I think he's maybe 5'9". Maybe.
What's funny is I'm 5'10".
Oh, okay.
But when I was in the hospital and I was on all of the drugs, they ask you a number of things to get to assess your cognition, right? Like whether you know where you are, who the president is, et cetera, et cetera. One of them was, how tall are you? And I said, I don't know. I think 6'4". And like the whole room laughed. And the doctor's like, yeah, no, bud.
Sorry to break it to you. You're not 6'4".
Yeah, it's too bad.
I remember that answer because I had no idea. I was like,
I will say I like my height. I'm comfortable with it. I've never been insecure about it. Like I'm fine with it.
So funny anecdote real quick. First time meeting my wife's father, who is a very hardcore ex-Marine, tough guy, right? He's 5'1". So when you walk into his house, it's like a split level house, and you go upstairs to get to the living room. And so he's at the top of the stairs to greet us, and I'm like 3 stairs down, and I'm looking at him in the eye. And I just kept coming up the stairs, and her dad looks at her and goes, "Oh, big guy, huh?" But yeah, it's quite funny.
My dad is like my height, and he's like the most muscular macho man you'll ever meet. So I never really. I mean, he can beat me up and 5 other people my height, and so I've never really felt it was a problem. But it does limit your dating pool. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move over to about Xbox at Gamescom and Avowed's delayed. Before we do that, please, if you're enjoying the conversation, hit us with that like, share this out. As I mentioned recently, the YouTube algorithm has been messy, and I know Hogue and I both, for variously different reasons, are not on the content train that we are normally on. Just life getting in the way. So everything helps us. We definitely appreciate that on both sides of the house.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. All right. So, guys, Gamescom is in a couple weeks. Xbox announcing a big presence at Gamescom and a bunch of games and showcases and other things they're going to show off, including Starfield Shattered Space. They've obviously got more Indiana Jones content. They're showing off a bunch of expansions, including Vessel of Hatred, Milepost Zero for Fallout 76, Gold Road for Elder Scrolls. They got Towerborn. They got Age of Mythology Retold. They're going to be showing. So a lot of good stuff. But as part of this, with the fall coming up, rapidly approaching, Avowed, which we've talked quite a bit about, has now been delayed. Supposedly, or reportedly, the game is ready. They're basically moving it to give it space because the fall is so jam-packed. Whether or not you believe that's up to you. But Avowed is now launching on February 18th. So about a 4-month window, because I believe the leaked release date was November 14th. So basically a 3-month shift from where it was previously. But that's what we're looking at now.
Does it count as a delay if they didn't announce the date?
Well, they announced that it was definitely coming in fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They said 2024, right?
Correct.
So
yeah, and then in the last month they told us fourth quarter.
Yeah, so I would say that's a delay. I think it's fine. Sounds like the right thing to do. It'll probably do better in February, would be my guess. So
yeah,
we'll see. February has been tough lately. I don't know.
January and February have been big sales months.
Yeah, the past couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what they're reacting to if they're just getting spaced. Would that be Veilguard? Because I wouldn't run away from Veilguard.
No, and I think Avowed looks like a decidedly different game than Veilguard, right? Like Avowed, they've specifically said is a smaller scope game. I always get this mixed up. Pillars of Eternity universe, right?
Pillars of Eternity for Avowed, yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe they're thinking they just want to give it space on Game Pass. Maybe, with Vessel of Hatred coming in October and Indiana Jones supposedly coming in November, maybe they just think move our other first-party game out.
I think it makes sense for them to reorganize their games if they're trying to hit that, like, we want one big game per quarter thing, and they have a gap, and they think Avowed could maybe use some more time, and also they don't really need it in that period. I think there's a lot of like business strategy decisions to do it, but also just like it's a big RPG. It probably, even if it's done, there's stuff they're not going to be bored. You know what I mean? There's stuff.
If it's going to be even more polished, then by all means. And for me personally, because if you think about the other games too, November, you're obviously going to have your big Call of Duty launch, the first one for Xbox in October. November is also Assassin's Creed Shadows, November 15th. Yep. I mean, there are
they've got Kingdom Come as the big RPG that I think they would be competing with as well.
That would probably be around this, unless that gets delayed. But yeah, around that same time frame. Stalker 2, which just moved to November as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think they have a development deal. They have a marketing deal with that.
Stalker 2. They do have the marketing for Stalker. Yes, it is. So yeah, we'll see. By the way, I said that be careful what you say with Hogue in the house, because Destin is making fun of your game here, Age of Mythology, my friend. So I said Hogue is the Age of Mythology stand over here.
For Era and Age of Mythology, both of which I don't think are really going to compel a lot of Xbox play. But I did love the original Age of Mythology, and I think it's funny that Microsoft is trying to sell two games with the subtitle, one of which is Retold and the other which is Untold. But hey, you know, I'm not in marketing, so go nuts, Microsoft. You do you.
I am. Do it. You're doing great.
Okay.
You're doing great. Keep it up.
You're doing great. I look at Microsoft and say, I don't feel like I've played a Microsoft first party game since Hellblade. And we all know how I felt about that one. So it doesn't feel like a year in which Xbox just keeps hitting me with so many games that I should be okay with them just moving one out. And if you're talking about business structure for putting out release dates, the appropriate time for that was immediately before the big showcase you have where you announce release dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're about to be hitting you with a bunch of stuff, right? Like you're going to get Vessel of Hatred from Team Xbox.
I'm getting Vessel of Hatred. That you are correct. That is an expansion to a game I loved last year. What else you got for me, Travis?
Shattered Space. We don't have a release date for. We'll see.
Also, an expansion to a game I liked last year. Anything else?
Indiana Jones.
I am not convinced Indiana Jones is coming out at all, but if it does, it's going to be late November or December.
Yeah,
coming out at all.
My point is under their umbrella, they have a lot of stuff in this quarter, and I could see them merely just wanting to be like, why would we explode our own? Why would we compete with ourselves and with all these different games that our various subsidiaries are putting out? Especially if this game could use a little bit more time, and we can just put it out in Q1 when we have less going on.
If it could use a little bit more time, then I'm going to read that as they're lying about it being finished.
I think that they probably are, but I always assume that what I'm being told is a lie because I'm a skeptic.
No, I think it's fair to have an adversarial relationship with press releases. I think that Microsoft has had this problem for years, especially after the acquisition started, which is they make more promises than they can seemingly keep. We saw it with the show where they said everything's coming out this year. That didn't work at all. This year, they didn't put very many release dates on. We saw the Avowed team accidentally put a date in their like Xbox press release post, right? Like that's the date you were mentioning.
November 14th. Yep.
And I don't feel like Avowed has had enough presence to really have me be expecting it this fall. You see what a real marketing presence looks like with Veilguard, where they jumped on and started showing stuff immediately. But I don't mind this delay. I just don't think people should be saying, well, it's because Microsoft is so loaded, because I don't think they are.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I am one of the people very excited for Indiana Jones. I hope that still hits. I would assume moving Avowed means Indiana Jones is still going to hit, considering those were their two big new releases for the year that weren't expansions, to your point. Towerborn, I think, looks really cool, but I wouldn't consider that a major release. I am extremely excited for Avowed. I think Obsidian, I love Obsidian, so I think they're going to crush that. But I don't have any problem with this moving to February. Again, I don't know if February, we'll see come December-ish maybe, but February has been a really tough month the last couple of years. There's been some huge releases in February. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, this fall is, from a all-up gaming standpoint, this fall is stacked.
I told you, I love this end of August sequence. I love
It's ridiculous.
Star Wars, Astrobot, like that.
Space Marine, and I forgot about Black Myth Wukong is in 2 weeks as well.
There you go.
So,
yeah, that one.
Yeah, there's like 5 games I want to play in a 2-week span, which is too much. But yeah, anyway, that's Gamescom again. Reminder is August 21st to 25th, so a few weeks, and then Keeley's doing his opening night live the night prior. So on the 20th. So a lot more to come there. It looks like it's going to be a very big show. And there's something next week that we'll talk about more with Gamescom too. So more to come on that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they get. We better get it's freaking end of August. We better have the firm release date for Indiana Jones coming out of that show. Do you think we get the release date for Shattered Space or Window?
I hope so.
I actually couldn't believe that they didn't give dates on that during the E3 time frame. So yeah, I think we should get dates for both.
Yeah, hopefully. Cool. Next, I want to talk about the THQ Showcase, more minor showcase, but some cool announcements that happened this week. So there is a summary link that I can put up in the chat. PlayStation Blog did a full summary of rundown of it. Couple games to call out here, and you guys, I don't know how much you want to talk about these, but a couple of things I wanted to call out. So there's a game called The Eternal Life of Goldman, which
looks awesome.
Yeah, it was shown at the show. It's a 2D adventure platformer by, is it Weappy Studio?
That's funny. I was reading it as Weepy, so okay, yeah.
Weappy Studio. Regardless, it looks amazing. Like the trailer for this blew me away. It looks almost like a kind of high intense 2D Rayman style game that we haven't gotten, since Rayman Legends. But
looks great. Can I add a Hoag's note? Please. Am I allowed to jump in? Because I did forget one that I wanted to mention. And I'm reminded of it because of this game, because I bought a game called, I think it's Bow, and it's like Path of the Teal something. Hang on. But
yes, I know what you're talking about, but yes.
We'll just try Bow and Path and Teal and see what pops up. Path of the Teal Lotus. Fantastic. This is a game that's a Metroidvania type game, or a Hollow Knight, if you're more in that vein. That's indie and done with Japanese art style and Japanese folklore as its basis. It is gorgeous. It is very enjoyable from what I've played so far. I've only kind of gotten through one boss. But if you like this style of game, if you like different art styles from indie studios, check out Bow Path of Lotus. Path of the Teal Lotus, not just any Lotus. Only Teal Lotus.
Has to be teal, yes.
And this is a game that apparently was published by Humble Games as one of its last acts, as best I can tell.
You're welcome.
But I do really, really like this one. And now we can get back to our previously scheduled discussion of Eternal Life of Goldman.
Yes, Eternal Life of Goldman. So you can check that out, the trailer for it, the THQ Showcase. I'll just run this down, and then you can pick which ones you want us to talk about. So they announced that. Epic Mickey Rebrush, which is coming out September 24th. Wreckfest 2, which is a cool announcement. Titan Quest 2, cool. A remake of Gothic 1. And then they basically left two kind of teases. Say it again.
Gothic 1? What's that?
I don't know. I'm just
not the Gothic one. Gothic.
The first Gothic is being remade. Yeah, the Gothic one. And then they basically teased two other things which were more notable, which is Tarsier, the studio that did Little Nightmares 1 and 2, are teasing their new game. It will premiere at Gamescom opening night live on the 20th during Keeley's show. And then they closed with a tease for a new Darksiders game. So there are, Darksiders fans are out there. I think that was a pretty big announcement for that core group of people. Darksiders games were pretty big at one point in time.
I really like Darksiders.
Yeah.
Didn't your favorite boys behind Remnant make their most recent Darksiders, Travis?
They did. They sure did. I know the team that's working on that one.
You know the team that's working on the new Darksiders that's not released, that's not announced yet?
Yeah.
Okay. I will not ask you for more information on that.
I thought you meant Gunfire Games. Isn't that what you meant?
Well, Gunfire made Darksiders 3, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was connecting with Travis on a human level there, and I want to make sure he doesn't accidentally violate an NDA of some kind.
No, sir.
That's our favorite time when we do that.
I'm under no NDA. I know facts about that studio and what's going on. So.
Okay,
cool. But yeah, I'm on this. I'm excited. Wreckfest 2 will be fun. Wreckfest 1, evolved over time. Really fun game, especially with friends. If you just hop online and have some fun with that one. Titan Quest 2 is an ARPG, a loot-based ARPG. I'm in. Just show me more. I'll play it. Let's go. Hope it's good. And then Tarsier. I love Little Nightmares 1 and 2. Some of my favorite games of that kind of vein. So I'm really excited to see what they've been working on because, as we know, Little Nightmares 3 is being made by a different studio. So I'm excited for Little Nightmares 3. I don't know if it's going to be as good, but I'm curious to see what Tarsier has been up to. So,
well, and Epic Mickey, to me, is a great choice for a remake. I think I've talked about it in this space, but if I haven't, Epic Mickey on the Wii was essentially a good idea that was held back by a lot of things, but one of which was the technology behind it. So that's the kind of thing that I want to see remade with more power. And I hope that the remake is good, or whatever they call it. It's repainted or repaint thinned.
I don't know. It's rebrushed.
Damn it.
Comes out. I was on mute. Sorry. September 24th. So that's next month.
Nice.
Mouse remastered.
Yes. I hate that one. That's like remastered for
come on, remastered's pretty good though.
I just don't like it when they change the middle.
Well, I don't like it when you change your middle. So I don't know what that even means. But
I mean, neither, but here we are.
Strongly.
Yeah. I don't know what it means, but I feel strongly about it.
Yeah. So it's a pretty common.
So anyway, I put a summary link. Like I said, PlayStation Blog did a summary of the THQ, a full rundown. I just put that in the SG chat here. So, but yeah, boys, I think that's going to wrap us up for the last show. Travis is a single man. I've been monitoring all the super chats, all the bidding war that's going on behind the scenes. Travis, I think you should move forward with D.
What are the bids?
No takers. That's interesting. Yeah, wasn't expecting that inevitable outcome.
For a little fun, because I forgot to share this last week. So I know Dan's obviously not with us. I did want to hear from Dan about how
say it like that. That's not like he's dead.
He's not with us anymore.
You do that so often. Like you did it with Hogue in the picture frame that made him look like he was deceased. Now
I thought Hogue was a goner. Okay, I'm a betting man. I bet on black, and he proved me wrong. Good for him. I lost a lot of money. We'll let it go. But Dan, shout out to Against the Tide, our legend who helps us with a lot of things around here, has the fun AI picks every week. She helped out because we were talking about hearing from Dan on what he's been playing and what he's been up to. And she put this together. So this is credit to her, but I'm going to share this. Audio listeners, I apologize slightly in advance, but here you go. A little fun before we close the show.
Hitman 1 games through Hitman 2 with Hitman 2 was Hitman 2 for Hitman 2. I'm a huge Hitman fan, and I Hitman 2. Hitman was Hitman 2, but Hitman 3, you can Hitman 3. You'll Hitman 3 when I Hitman 3 a lot. Hitman, I download Hitman still. Hitman Day, Hitman DLC, Hitman stuff. I love the Hitman series, so more Hitman. Hitman 3, and that's Hitman a little Hitman, then Hitman 3. That's and then I Hitman 2, Hitman 2, which is Hitman 1. So Hitman and then Hitman 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the thing with Hitman is Hitman Absolute, Hitman 1 and 2, and Hitman 1, because in Hitman 2, I think it was the first Hitman. We play Hitman.
Not a big Hitman guy, but I know Dan's played the hell out of him. Yeah, he's
literally
excited
on my screen right now on my TV.
So in case you don't know what Dan was playing, there you go.
The audio listeners, if you couldn't tell, those were completely different clips. He was bouncing around the screen in different T-shirts. Those, despite the cadence being almost identical every time, those were different.
It was weird how he says Hitman a specific way.
He has a specific cadence, and tone when he says Hitman. But yes,
Hitman. That was good. My favorite part of that video was that every time he said it, everyone else on the screen was like looking away, doing something else, very disengaged.
We're like, Dan's on Hitman again.
Yeah, like as soon as he mentioned Hitman, everybody was just like.
Oh man, but Dan is doing well. We still talk to him, of course, all the time, so he's doing well. Anyway, let's go ahead and close this one up. Chat, you've been awesome today. Great to have everyone back with us. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Audio listeners, you've been great too. Our audio listeners count has kept going up the past couple weeks. I don't really know why. I don't know if it's just summer people maybe.
I keep buying new cell phones.
Hogue, I think, probably nailed it. You keep buying new cell phones. Yeah, maybe it's just summer cruising around listening to us instead of watching. Either way, I understand. Maybe we'll just go no cameras on the live show to help you guys. But Hogue, go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, I didn't know it wasn't going to be a topic today, but I do want to mention that Game Informer is no more.
Oh, God damn. How did I forget to put that on the list?
I pour one out if you've ever read a Game Informer or been solicited to purchase them in a GameStop near you. But they are apparently done with their magazine run. And I do miss video game magazines. Like I used to have them around the house, around the dorm room.
EGM.
You randomly see them. You smile at the cover. Maybe you read a story. Maybe you take it to the bathroom with you. None of that is available anymore, and I miss it. So
I do.
That's my seasoned take.
Yeah, I mean, I have no affinity for physical magazines, but I think that their contribution to gaming is undeniable. I think the content they produced was high quality and cool, and I'm very sad that their apparently entire library of content just disappeared. Like that almost seems criminal. So yeah, I mean, I don't like to see the industry consolidate any more than anyone else, and wish that they could have existed in some form. It seems weird to just go from being here to not existing at all. I kind of expected them to take at least that middle step of getting rid of their physical magazine, which I don't think makes a lot of economic sense in this day and age. But yeah, they were a good outlet. Shout out to Blake Hester, one of my good friends who was the editor-in-chief there for a while, and who I started out with in working for free at a no-name outlet. So
yeah, I apologize. I forgot to add that on there. Very frustrating for me. I've been long time GI fan. I have I probably have hundreds of issues of GI stacked away. They were around for 33 years. They were a staple. Funny enough, when I did the Extra Life thing 2 weekends ago, Dan Reichert was there, who's at Giant Bomb now. So I was talking to him for a long time about that. One of the other guys, I'm going to forget his damn name now. Daniel Tack, who was at GI for a long time. He's at Bandai Namco now. He was actually who I demoed Shadow of the Erd Tree with at Summer Game Fest last month, and we talked for a little while about GI. I had Andrew Reiner, former editor-in-chief, on this channel. We talked one-on-one for a while, so just been a big influence for me in gaming for a long time, and I was very, very frustrated to see what happened to that crew over there. Even the guys who were working there up to the last day, like Alex and Wes and everyone, saw those guys in LA, really good guys. They worked really hard. They were a staff of only 12 people, and they produced a lot of content for 12 people. So very frustrating. I think some of the decisions GameStop has made in their executive leadership, again, going back to leadership, have been very poor. But it's frustrating. So I feel bad for those guys. I wish them all the best, and it's a sad day for sure.
You're saying we shouldn't buy GameStop stock?
Once again, like this show is not a legal advice forum. It's not a financial or stock tips forum.
All of
regardless of what Travis might tell you.
All the things I say are financial advice, just to be clear.
Yeah. So good call out, Hogue.
How I trigger Hogue by violating all of the things you're supposed to do. That was so good. He can't control me. No one can. I'm an animal.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Anyway, Hogue, anything else you want to call out, Hogue, or are you good?
No, I put a community post up on my channel this week talking about the fact that I have not hit the ground running, making content off of my vacation and transitioning into video creation again. But we'll see how that goes. I have a long list of things people have mentioned they want to hear from me about. And it's just been easier to participate in panels and group discussions than it has been to create virtual legalities or anything like that of late. So I will continue to do my best, and I appreciate everybody hanging in there with me.
Yep. I would echo that on my own channel as well. Travis, go ahead, man.
Yeah, well, I don't have a ton of content to promote since I'm in between reviews and preview content, but I'll have a ton next month, or I guess later this month once my wedding's out of the way.
I have an important question, Travis.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will you be reviewing your wedding?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think so. Why not?
There's a conflict of interest there.
I don't want him to review his marriage. I just want him to review his wedding.
Yeah. I think
he's got to he hasn't put enough time into the play to review the marriage yet, Hogue.
Because here's the thing, yeah, right. Yeah, that's very true. I can review the what do you call it?
You're in preview. The beta. Yeah, you can review the beta.
But I can review the courtship. It'd be nice, right? It'd be good. I think she would have some things to say about the courtship, for sure.
Yeah, we need to know who got the editorial pen on that one.
Yeah. So, I could review it because there are some things that aren't up to me, right? Like I've hired a lot of vendors and there's a lot of logistic and teams working around me. So I can kind of give them, I will certainly be giving everybody individual feedback, our photographer, our videographer, etc. So why not review it? Why not tell my best man what I think of his best man speech? 4 out of 10, too much lady. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I am a lord, and so she will become my lady wife, which will be fun. We have a lot of nobility references in our wedding.
That sounds like fun, Ains. Enjoy.
It's gonna be great.
D,
get in here. Yeah, I'm excited for her to be on the show as a guest to tell you what it's like living with me. But yeah, I'm excited for you to meet her, Ains. Hogue, I wish you were there. You can still come.
Yeah, tell her to set up in the coming weeks because we're gonna have her on to talk about the wedding and to talk about just random things.
I mean, you'll be able to coordinate this with her when you meet her on Tuesday. So
she may be a little busy on Tuesday.
No, well, she's gonna hang out for our Wednesday Operation Black Bear, all that stuff. That'll be fun. Cool. So
Black Bear,
Hogue, we'll talk after the show. But anyway, we have some cool stuff planned. So I just wanted to say real quick that my life is going to change a little, and that's cool. I mean, really nothing's changing except for I'm getting married. But I just wanted to say that this show represents a very cool part of my life. I got to start doing a lot more shows when COVID happened. I met a lot of people, including Dan, Hogue, and Ains, who we decided to put the show together put the show together as a group. And I will never forget this part of my life, no matter what else happens, because it has been awesome and lots of new stuff and new friends and living in this weird San Francisco place with D and all this. So I think this will be one of those times where I eventually look back at and be like, those were the good old days, right? When we had that new Bitcast show and D and I were just starting dating and I was doing crazy reviews all throughout the night. And who knows how long I'll be able to keep that up. But this has been such a awesome part of my life. And I'm excited for what the next chapter looks like.
Is he leaving the show, Hogue?
Is this? Yeah. Do my messaging ears hear a couple past tenses there?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the past tense. Like going forward, it's going to be a different show and a different like kind of, you know what I mean? Like this is kind of a preface to.
If you think that I'm not going to challenge you just because you're married, you got another thing coming, buddy.
No, but you're going to be challenging married Travis, and so he's going to have a whole different worldview. I don't know. Probably nothing's going to change. But my point is that I just think that this will be a kind of lightning in a bottle part of my life that I'll never be able to recapture. Right, because there were so many new things and different crazy world events going on at the same time that allowed this specific cocktail of events to transpire. That led me
I know what you mean.
And it will never be back at that, no matter what happens in the future. So I'm just very excited for that. But yeah, it's gonna be great, and I'm excited to hang out with you. And
that was a unexpected real moment.
I know I'm not genuine very often.
Sincere Travis is the scariest form, man.
Sincere Travis.
I like it though. I like it.
Is rare. You'll see him. I have to be sincere when I give my vows. I am resisting so much putting just a bunch of jokes in there. But yeah, I'm gonna try to be real.
We'll stay on the real thing for a moment. So seriously, what was it? I mean, this has been said a million times, but I always remember The Office for some reason, like the last episode of The Office, and they're like they're flashing back all the stuff that's happened, and I think it's what's his name's character, Ed Helms, who says like, how come you're never aware of the good times when you're in them? You know what I mean? Like you only think about them afterwards. And for me, getting older, losing my son, not to get too serious here, but losing my son and things that have happened in my life, I put those things into reflection more now than I used to by a long stretch. And, you know, just hanging out with you guys, talking bullshitting about video games and making jokes and the things going on in my personal life with family and stuff. It's really good right now. You know what I mean? And you do need to take that step back and appreciate those things and recognize them in the moment, because things can change in an instant. And they will change no matter what. So eventually, I
think that's a skill I've always had. Maybe it's related to the critic thing, but I often find myself thinking like, how cool is it that I get to do the things I'm doing right now? I think of that all the time. I don't know why, but it's just, and yeah, I mean, if things change and are cool in a different way in the future, that will also be awesome. That's optimistic me looking forward. But like this specific version of my awesome life and all the cool people I've been hanging out with has also just been great. So I'm very grateful to you guys and the audience here and just getting to talk about games every week, and people putting up with the fact that I'm completely hard to be around and unacceptable as a human being. So
unacceptable. Good call out. We got a couple late super chat shoes coming in, a couple memberships. Let's get these real quick. If I can fix my buttons here. Shoosh offers €2 to say Hitman is a precursor to Skull and Bones. I'm trying to get through an episode without mentioning that game, and you're not helping me, Shoosh.
Not going to happen.
I already mentioned Skull and Bones. I talked about Skull and Bones earlier.
He did.
I didn't want to mention that you mentioned it. That
he fulfilled his contractual obligation to the Ubisoft Corporation.
For the record, I'm not getting paid by Ubisoft to say.
For the record, he is paid by Ubisoft.
I will say that one of the guys I talked to at Ubisoft, who I met up with in LA and met in person for the first time, mentioned how much he loved hearing about Skull and Bones from you on this show.
No way.
He watches the show. I swear.
Really?
That's 100% true story. Yes,
that's
100%
amazing.
true story. And I was like, yeah, I've got to dial him back a bit though. Like I don't need to hear Skull and Bones 48 times in a show. You know what I mean? So we had a good laugh about it. Yeah. I met him at the theater. Yeah.
Give it a try.
There are Ubisoft developers watching this and being like, well, Hogue likes it. I like that idea. We're doing.
They're pulling clips out to send in the studio. Like, look, we got one.
Yeah.
I want to shout out.
I occasionally get phone calls and messages like that. I got one from somebody at Microsoft that was passing around some of the analysis I did of their acquisitions at one point. I get. One of the things I say is the strangest about the YouTube world is that I would get phone calls on my work line, on my office line, from places that I knew were just the subject of a recent video. And I kept waiting for someone to just berate me and threaten a lawsuit or something. And in general, people were very positive about the coverage, but it's still like a moment of fear when you're like, okay, yes, I'll take this call from where Gearbox is located after I just did a video on Gearbox. What's up?
That's cool. Ash Axiom, thank you. Gifting a membership on both sides of the house, Hoglaw side, SG side, Ash. Thank you, thanks, as Ashy. Always, is what I was trying to say.
I thought you were going for Ashium. I thought you were just going to put it all together.
Nice.
That's actually pretty good. Yeah, there you go. Shoosh, again.
Shoosh also offers €5 to say, can't wait to see replayability score for Travis's wedding from
He better have something planned or I'm going to be harsh.
Yeah, replayability is going to be brutal.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I think not applicable, I guess.
No, you're not getting away with an NA. Okay, no,
fun.
No. Shoosh, thank you as always for the generosity.
What if you showed up to my wedding and I made everybody sign an NDA? Like, you're not allowed to, it's like, don't forget, embargo lifts on this wedding. 4 days after the wedding, you can talk about it. Mysteric Claus, I think I got that right, is a member for 21 months and says, I'll be nice and not mention Skull and Bones.
Good job.
Thank you for the membership. I hated canceling it. Green Heart, happy wedding, Travis. Remember to show down, Green Heart.
Does that mean slow down, or does she actually mean you need to show down?
Are we doing a duel in the middle of our ceremony? We don't know.
Fair enough. Claus, thank you very much. All right. On the SG side of the house, yeah, it's been quiet over here too. That's why I said I appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. Between career work, travel, be away this week for Travis's wedding. I'm away again a week in September. Just a lot going on. Have not kept up with content like I'd like to, but some good things in the works. We've got some people working on some things. We're actually teasing internally a complete kind of rebrand of SG right now. It's still going to be Season Gaming, but just a whole new look and feel. Some things we're working on should be very cool. I'm very excited about that. So more to come in the near future. But thank you all for hanging out with us this Sunday. We will be back with funny stories next week from Travis's wedding. Hopefully no one dies. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It's going to be wild.
Risk.
But yeah. But anyway, hope you enjoy your gaming this week. And as always, we will see you next Sunday. Until then.